Wagwan.
Hey, yo, I'm turning it off. I'm turning it off. I swear to God, I'm turning it off.
Listen, Reflections of a DJ, the R.O.A.D podcast.
We at the Sound Collective.
I'm one of your hosts, Big Man Ting, DJ Crooked. We have Brooklyn's beloved
Goldfinger.
And we got a special guest.
Yo, what up, son?
We got a special guest.
Son? What up, go?
Wait, hold on. Allow it. Hold on. Special guest straight from the UK. Now he's in Brooklyn. He's an honorary Brooklynite right now. He has his own label, Barbershop Records. Mm-hmm. Co-founder of London's biggest hip hop night, Living Proof. Yep. I definitely want to talk about this.
Yep.
He was signed to Defected Records. He set up shop in Brooklyn. He's doing Brooklyn things right now. Big man things. We got DJ Snips in the building.
What's good, Snips? Yeah. Appreciate you guys having me, man.
So you got your name Snips. You had a barbershop in London?
No.
I heard like you had a barbershop or you was a barber or something.
All right, so my last name is Worsnip.
Oh,
so Snips was just a nickname that I had growing up. So when I became a DJ, I was like, all right, Sticks. People call me Snips anyway. So
I like the barbershop story better.
It makes more sense. But the barbershop thing came from. So the first record I put out that got signed to Defected, my boy Will Stowe, who was a poet who was on the record, we used to go to the same barbershop.
Yeah.
Right? It was literally like a block away from my house. So then when I was trying to come up with a name, like my production is very much like sample based, cut and chop.
Yeah.
So we just had the kind of conversations like cut, chop, snips. So like shop, just
the way you approach dance music, your dance music production, I heard is very much like 90s hip hop.
Yeah.
Where it's like sample drums.
Yep.
Sample bass.
Everything sampled.
Yeah, sample chords.
Yep.
And it's almost like a DJ Premier or like a 90s hip hop like kind of formula, but it's translated to like house or
pretty much, man.
Yeah.
Similar, I guess, like, guys like Pal Joey and Kenny Dope, how they used to make records as well. Just like, I love house music. I love early house music, but I'm definitely, my background is very much a hip hop background.
Yeah. So you're born and raised in London?
I was born in a city called Bristol, which is
okay.
I guess.
So you have a Bristol accent?
No,
you have a London accent.
I've been in London pretty much my whole life.
That's a London accent.
Bristol accent is wild. If you know what a Bristol accent sounds like?
Yeah,
sounds like a Bayesian accent.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I hear it? Can you do it?
All right. So if I did like a Bristol accent, it would sound like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's the difference.
So Bristol, I guess, is like, if you were going to compare Bristol to London, it's like comparing like Philly to New York. It's kind of like a smaller city, couple of hours away, big music culture, like a lot of, so like Massive Attack, Portishead, Ronnie Size, Tricky, Nena Cherry, kind of, she's originally from Sweden, but she came from the Bristol scene. So there was like a big kind of like, almost like a sister scene in the 80s and 90s.
Gotcha.
Like Nelly Hooper, who did all the Soul to Soul stuff.
Interesting.
He's from Bristol, so.
It's funny, I've heard so many stories about you and your party.
Right.
Living Proof. I've been to maybe London twice in my life.
Okay. Oh, so you've been out there?
Wait, no. Correction. I've been to London once in my life.
Right. Okay.
And I was there only for like 2 days.
Right. Okay.
I was like with Mo. But everything I've heard about London and about Snips and Living Proof, I've heard through MoMA.
Right.
Yeah,
Mo's my guy, man. Shout out to Momo.
But I've also seen you guys online.
Yeah.
You guys have done boiler room takeovers.
Yeah.
You guys, probably you had the biggest hip hop party in London,
for sure.
right?
For sure.
And it's almost like I was talking with Mo. It's almost like the Rub, kind of like when the Rub kind of started in New York.
Yeah.
But you guys had like ASAP Rocky, ASAP Ferg.
Yeah.
You guys were like culture in London, where it was like if a hip hop artist went to London, they had to go to Living Proof and they perform like.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, like Joey Badass would perform, right?
Yeah.
We
got in on that like
2007.
Yeah, we started in 2007, but that whole wave of like the whole wave of hip hop that came around the like the late aughts to the early 10s, like ASAP, Danny Brown, Flatbush Zombies,
right.
Schoolboy Q, Ferg, like all of those guys, Joey Badass, Bronson,
right,
like all of those guys came through. So we kind of you know, we really hit our stride during that movement, and we became the place that everybody from that world.
That's dope.
Right.
That's dope.
You know,
That's a whole era.
Goldie,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
gonna
it
love
really
this. You're gonna love this story. They're known for having MF Doom have.
Oh yeah,
MF doing what?
They're known for having.
we had the imposter.
You had that's your
Yeah, we had an imposter, but to DJ.
Say word.
Yeah.
How did you know?
All right, so
are you guys you're the one that went viral for that or no?
No,
Because he performed. The imposter actually performed.
yeah, no, ours was a DJ thing.
But where was that the imposter performed? Do you remember?
It happened a few times.
A few times.
Yeah, it happened a few times. And you know, a performance you should be able to tell immediately. A DJ set is a little different, you know.
But the mask
He's
was
not-
on.
he's
The
not
mask was on everything. Yeah.
He's not really known for DJing.
I didn't know he DJ'd.
So, man,
You guys
tell this
got
story,
You guys got.
We listen. If I tell, I'm gonna put this on record as well.
Yeah.
This was the fault of mine and Khalil's and Budgie's other business.
Okay, so
partner,
let's give
Raj. I'm talking to you. We all know this was your fault.
let's give a shout to your co-founders because there's
Yes.
4 of y'all.
Yeah.
It was Khalil. There was Raji, right?
Yep.
Raji Rags
No, Raji Rags and Budgie. So,
and Budgie. Yeah.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, Khalil lives in New York as well. If you're a New Yorker, you've probably been to Khalil's parties. He does shapes. You know, he DJs everyday people.
Khalil came to New York.
He came a few years before me, yeah.
Before you, right?
Yeah. Raj used to run Boiler Room. He still DJs, but he's more in the kind of like dance music world. And then Budgie is like producer extraordinaire now. He's in LA. You know, he's on the Kanye album. He was on the Drake album. You know, he's kind of like, you know, he works a lot with Alchemist. So
That's dope.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah, so
let's get to the MF Doom. Yeah, let's get to the MF Doom.
You're blaming who are you blaming? You're blaming Khalil?
I'm blaming Raj.
Raj.
I'm blaming
okay.
Raj. So I didn't want to do it. Not because I'm not a Doom fan, but because the kind of party that
No, I want to go before that. I want
Right.
to like was an email sent? Like what?
No, so we knew. So the guys that were looking after Doom, in London, we knew them. Like, you know, we all kind of moved in the
Right.
same scene. You know, and this is when Doom was he wasn't allowed back into America at this point. So he was living in London because I'm sure you guys know he was born in London.
No, we did know that.
Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah, Doom.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Doom was born in London. So the last like 10 years of his life, he was living in London because he wasn't allowed back into the States.
Didn't know that either.
Yeah. That's why he was out there. So while he was living there, I'm gonna be really respectful during this because obviously I'm a huge Doom fan, and you know,
Right.
rest in peace. So I don't want to come off as disrespectful in any way. But yeah, he did us over, man.
Well,
so-
not actually, because
Well, no, to be
But
honest.
someone contacted you, or you guys reached out,
so-
and they
so-
said, you know,
So Raj was speaking to one of the dudes. I'm not going to name him because we still don't have a great relationship. And, you know, like it you know, I turned up at a Doom show afterwards and we...
right?
So basically, they contacted us, said, "Oh, you know, why don't we get Doom to come to Living Proof? He could do a DJ set." And I was kind of like, "We're a party, right?
Right.
We're not like an underground rap club. We're all underground rap heads, you know.
Right.
And you're gonna definitely hear more kind of like
mainstream.
quote unquote real hip hop at our parties than other parties.
Right.
But we're still playing, you know, we're still trying to make people dance. You know, it's like
Yeah.
a party, you know. So I was kind of like, I don't think a Doom DJ set is going to make sense for what we do. And, you know, we all had a discussion about it. Raj was like, no, come on, we'll sell tickets immediately and get real Doom fans out. So even if it's not our regular crowd, it's worth doing. So we did it. And the management was going, but at one point the management was like, we agreed a price, and they were like, he doesn't want to do it. Can you pay an extra $500 when we get there? And I was already like, I'm not doing this. Like, let's just cancel it. Like, I was like, no, we're gonna do it. It's worth it. Like, you know, he really sold us on it. And then he turned up, and you know, no one had really seen Doom in the public eye for a few years at this point, right? So he put on a lot of weight, and like. So he's turned up, and he's got the guys that we know who are like looking after him, and everyone's looking like, is that him? You know, because people hadn't seen him. Like, you know,
Did he have the mask on?
he had the mask on, yeah. So he starts playing, and suddenly everyone clicked. It was like, that's not him, and people started wondering. You know what I did?
Wait, what was he playing?
I can't remember. It was like breaks and like it wasn't club shit in any
Yeah,
way,
yeah.
right? When it happened, I tapped my partners. I like, I'm going to sit in the back. You guys can deal with this shit because I fucking told you.
Right.
Like I told you we don't. Yeah. It was.
Did he play any of his stuff?
No. No. He played for like 10 minutes before they pulled him up. And then we shut the club because people were wilding out, being like, "Nah, that's not Doom. We paid the tickets."
Wow. It happened that fast.
Yeah, it was almost immediate.
Yo, roadies and roadies for life. You already know that we rock heavy with DJ City. It's our go-to record pool to download the latest music, edits, and remixes for our DJ sets. So now, Road listeners can join DJ City for only $10.
$10?
Only $10. That's almost 70% off the first month. Make sure you scan the QR code or click the link in the description or go to djcity.com/offer/road to jump on this great deal.
So wait, he was playing breaks, and then when was the crowd starting to be like, that's not Doom?
Oh, within like 5 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So did y'all like make a spectacle? Like, Doom, introducing Doom. And he comes on the DJ and he starts to play?
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. I don't mean it was a small club. This was
Right.
like 300 people max, you know?
Wow.
Because wait, your party at this time, was it like in a basement?
It was smaller, yeah. It was in a little basement.
it was
Yeah,
the
we grew
basement.
to a point where we were doing like, 800-900 tickets. But
Right.
this was like when we were still fairly early on. So, I mean,
But
we...
wait.
Now, was he using vinyl or was it like Serato?
No.
Like-
It was, I can't remember if it was Serato or it was like... This was before it was normal to bring a controller, so I'm sure it was Serato.
So it was getting rowdy. Like,
I mean, not that rowdy just because, no
like-
disrespect, but the
Yeah.
average Doom fan is not about to...
were they like booing and shit? Or like throwing shit?
Yeah, not throwing, but people were booing, and people were coming up to us, being like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you ripped us off!" And we were like, "Look, we didn't know.
Oh,
like he
shit.
ripped us off. Like we're not trying to rip nobody off. We paid thinking it was.
What year
Doom.
was this? Like, do you think? How far in were you with the party?
This was like 2011, maybe.
So you were like 4 years in?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
you
it-
shut it down, but then it was probably good marketing because everyone was talking about your party a little bit, right? Or not really?
Well, so here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
This was kind of a turning point for us as well. This is
Okay.
as we were becoming bigger. And this sounds so bad, and I don't mean it's in a disrespectful way, but like this was at a point where the fans that would want to go and see MF Doom DJ weren't necessarily the fans that wanted to come and party at our party.
Gotcha.
At this
Right.
point, like I said, we were getting the fans that were into ASAP and into so it's like the kind of
it's a different demographic.
it's a different
Yeah.
demographic, and like I said, I'm a big underground rap fan.
It's a different generation.
I'm not trying
Yeah.
to be in parties with underground rap fans, bro.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I love that shit, but that's not who I want to party with.
No.
You know?
It was good. It was a good like line in the sand kind of thing. right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so what
Turning
happens
point.
to Doom? I just want to know what happens to him at the party.
Oh, they rushed him out.
Oh, they rushed him out.
Yeah, they got him out. They got him in the cab.
So management was like, let's
yeah.
get out of here
Yeah.
before some shit.
And the reason it was a problem for us, and again, stuff that I want, we knew the management. We knew the people. They were Londoners. They're people that we knew. And I felt very much like,
These guys took advantage of me.
you think you can do this
Right.
to us?
Right.
Like, so, yeah. I mean, it was spoken about afterwards and handled and everything, but
Yeah, it's a serious thing as it's happening, but
Yeah.
like, it's just
it's hilarious
So
now.
hilarious.
It's
now.
hilarious
It's
now.
so great. It's
But
such
at the time, I was like, oh, nah, like somebody needs to
man,
get hurt.
allow
You
it.
don't have any
Allow
pictures,
it.
Like, was it on any websites or any pictures or anything?
You know what? There might be. I need to
nights,
look.
7 days
But you know
or
what?
some
I need to look.
You guys are lucky because it was like social media camera. Like it was just right before that shit happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yo, that's hilarious.
That's great. You know what? I want to ask you actually. What was going on in London nightlife in the 2000s where you felt the need to start this party?
So it was. I think there was something going on really similar than what was happening in New York, which was the 90s was amazing.
Yeah.
And then the 2000s happened.
Walk me through the 90s in London.
Well, you had multiple scenes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you had the dance music. You had the UK garage. You had jungle
Right.
before that, and there was always. And I think this is where the translation gets lost in America. Is for you guys like.
Oh, he's already talking down to us
No, no.
Americans.
No.
Listen, wait, what's the time? It only took what? It took 15 minutes. Every time, I had DJ Yoda here.
Right. I don't know.
I'm like, whenever I have someone from the UK here, I always count how long it takes before they start shitting on Americans.
No, not at all. Listen, I stand up for my US friends, you know, I argue with Brits. But no, basically,
Tell us how we fucked up.
Yeah.
Go right.
well, actually, you know what? I
What's
say
the
that,
disconnect?
so you guys would see like the UK garage music and the jungle music. You guys see that as like rave music and dance music, whereas for us it was music that sat right next to hip hop and R&B. So you would regularly hear a garage set or a jungle set in a hip hop and R&B club, or
Right.
you'd go to clubs where there'd be 2 rooms. Right, so I guess similar to how New York was in the early 90s, late 80s, where you would still hear house in clubs, where you would hear hip hop and reggae as well. So you had a kind of mixture of scenes, but you did also have like a hip hop scene. Like our hip hop, the way we consumed hip hop was solely via New York. So
Right.
like if music, it's really funny because when I speak to people from other parts of the States and they talk about regional rap, I'm like, we just grew up on New York rap. And if we grew up on rap that wasn't from New York, it was because it popped in New York. You know, so obviously like, you know, we listen to Snoop and we listen to Pac or whatever, but like we weren't listening to niche like Bay Area rap or Southern rap. Like in the 90s when you went to a hip hop club in London, you heard Smith & Wesson, you heard like real New York rap,
Right.
you know? So
And dance hall was always present.
Oh, 100%.
Right.
Like dancehall was the main focus.
Yeah.
And then we had a big soul scene as well.
There's so
you know,
many like West Indians and Caribbean people in the UK.
Absolutely.
Especially
Yeah.
London, right?
Yeah. And I mean, you know, the best rap that came out of London was very much like a hybrid of like dancehall and rap.
Right.
So I don't know if you
like
ever
Lady
heard of-
Sovereign, like you.
Oh. I don't know. Have you guys ever heard of London Posse?
No.
Yeah, dude, I do remember.
Are you
know-
pronouncing that right? London.
London Posse.
Okay,
London
okay.
Posse. So they were a group that came out in, I think their first record came out in '87. It was called Money Mad, and
Okay.
it sampled Courtney Melody, Bad Boy reggae record. But it was actually Tim Westwood that put the record out. Radio DJ Tim Westwood. I'm sure you're familiar. But London Posse were like, they weren't the first group, but they were definitely like you've got everything before London Posse and everything after. You know, I guess they were like you know how New York would have felt when Eric B. and Rakim came out or Public Enemy came out. You know, you had the before and after that kind of era. So, and they were very much, you know, a hybrid of dancehall and rap. And, you know, like Rodney P was like the main rapper. He's still active today making music, you know. So we had that.
It makes sense because even New York hip hop, right?
Yeah.
And with like what Salam Remy was doing when he was like fusing dancehall with like New York hip hop beats and production. It only makes sense that would translate so well in London and UK,
Absolutely.
right?
And a lot of those records broke off.
Yeah,
they're huge.
Completely. I would say New York is. It's funny. I was having a conversation with my boy. I don't know if you know Johnny Goldfigure, reggae DJ from over here. He spends a lot of time in London as well, and he broke it down really well. He was like, New York was a dancehall city, and London was a lovers rock city. So
Okay, can you explain Lovers Rock?
it's basically like the soulful version of reggae. Like the I guess like, you know, that when people say lovers rock, they think of like, you know, Beres Hammond and Sanchez and those kind of artists. But there was a UK lovers rock scene,
Right.
Which was
it's its own genre.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah, you know, I mean, Janet Kay was the biggest lovers rock artist that came out of the UK. But then you had another group called Brown Sugar, which was made up of Carol Thompson, Coffee, and Karen Wheeler, who later on became the vocalist
Soul.
for Soul to Soul.
Soul,
So she
yeah.
was part of a reggae group when she was 14, 15,
Yeah.
I think at the time. So yeah, a lot of our soul scene, like, you know, the Soul to Souls, the Loose Ends, Omar, all of these guys, they all kind of came out of this lovers rock world that was, you know, came from kind of the reggae world, you know?
Right.
But yeah, I guess lovers rock is like the hybrid version of reggae and R&B or reggae and soul.
Right. It's
I don't know if that's the best way to describe it. There would be like real lovers rock kind of experts that would probably not describe it like that. But I guess like the simplest way is to say that.
so this is in the 90s. This is all like 80s,
No, this was
90s,
before 70s and 80s.
70s
Was
and 80s.
real- yeah.
Yeah.
By the 90s, so you had, like in the 80s, we were still very much American music, right? And I'm saying this as a historian. I wasn't in the clubs in the 80s. You know,
course,
I was born in the late 70s. So you had, we were listening to, the club scene was very much like, I guess similar to what was being played in New York. It was 70s soul and funk, some 80s R&B, 80s hip hop, dancehall, and the early startings of like house and garage music. That was what UK clubs sounded like at that time. And then in the early 90s, you kind of had our own, they called it hardcore at the time, which was like the birth of what would later become jungle, which came out of like fusing breakbeats and into dance music. The jungle scene happened. This was like early to mid 90s. And the thing with the jungle scene is, it's funny because jungle like really lasted about 3 years. And then it morphed into drum and bass, which became a whole different thing. Jungle music was street music. Like jungle raves smelled like crack smoke. Like jungle raves were like,
that was like a London hood party.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's almost like but it's obviously dance music, high energy dance music, right? But it's similar to like what Baltimore club or
right,
right,
that's probably the best way to describe it. Yeah, very bass heavy. It's still like like a lot of jungle just sounds like 80s and 90s dancehall music with sped up breakbeats under,
right?
And then as that moved into drum and bass, which became more of a kind of like white scene essentially. You had garage music, or UK garage, which kind of came from the house music world that was a separate thing, like the people that were into like Masters of Work and that kind of shit, Kerry Chandler. The UK garage scene developed out of that, and then a lot of the jungle audience in the late 90s ended up in the garage world.
What got you into the nightclubs early on? Was it?
I was a hip hop head.
You was a hip hop
I wasn't really interested in if you were in London, you played jungle, you heard garage, but like I was a hip hop head, man. In the late 90s, I was listening to Stretch and Bob tapes.
Right.
And, like buying indie rap records and going to Westwood parties where the biggest songs in the club were like Nori's Bam from TV and DMX's Get At Me.
Wait,
like those were what was being played in
what
the
was
club.
What was the nightclub, the first nightclub you went to that was like, that you were like?
I don't know which was the first. There was about 3 that were like regular. You had Subterranea on a Friday night. You had Hanover Grand on a Wednesday. And these were the clubs where, this is late 90s, where you're basically hearing what Flex is playing in the tunnel, in these clubs. And then Westwood used to do this monthly party at a club in Tottenham called the Temple, or Club UN. And that was like, every month we'd have Cypher play, or you'd have Max Glazer play, or Flex, or Mr. C, rest in peace. Like it was always like one of the Hot 97 guys would come over. Because, our radio shows on Friday and Saturday, you would lock into Westwood and he's broadcasting Flex live.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like almost like sister stations.
Yeah.
Really?
So when I say we really consumed what was happening in New York, like at that time,
right.
like when I would come out to New York, like especially like the first time I came to New York, I was staying in East Flatbush, and I was just like, this is just London. Just feels like London, A little rougher at that time, but like it felt like London to me.
Yeah. Well, Tim Westwood was really like the ambassador.
He was the London Flex.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Well, he was like a bunch of things. He's like Fab Five Freddy. He's just like
he goes back.
He had so many hats, right?
Yeah. He was definitely the ambassador.
Yeah, we're talking from late 70s.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because before he really hooked up with Flex and was broadcasting Flex from Hot 97, he was with Marley. And he, don't quote me on this, like some of my older heads could confirm it, but I'm sure he used to do like live
DMC?
broadcasts from Queensbridge with Marley,
He did the DMC stuff, with, a lot of the competition stuff. He was involved with that stuff as well. He was really an ambassador.
Yeah.
He actually came to the clubs a couple of times and like take people's sets and take my set at Cheetah a couple of times.
Oh, he did?
For real.
Westwood he was on his shit, man. He was on his shit.
A lot of Brits have a funny relationship with Westwood because on one hand, you really can't rewrite his history of who he is, right? On the other hand, there are plenty of reasons to dislike Westwood, and people have genuine gripes with him for real genuine reasons, So it's a tough one. It's like separating a man from what he did for the culture in.
Now, this was being through BBC. Was it BBC?
Yeah.
Hey, yo, what's good? This is the R.O.A.D podcast, Reflections of a DJ. We're here in New York City, and we have invaded the Sound Collective. Now, I want to explain what the Sound Collective is. I got my man Lefty from the Sound Collective here. Lefty, thank you for having us and hosting this beautiful studio for us. Exactly what is the Sound Collective here in New York?
Modern, state-of-the-art facility with tons of production gear. And one side of it is you can be a member and you can come here and pay monthly to use the rooms and the gear and sign out time and our space. We have a state-of-the-art studio. We have all these production stations, DJ stations, instrument practicing rooms and such like that.
And you also teach. You have classes and sessions, right?
We have intensive programs, short-term programs that people can come and take Saturday classes on DJing, production.
There's kind of a community building within where there's DJs, producers, musicians.
Up and coming producers, people honing their craft and learning, and DJs and all these things. And they come here and practice, and we have all the new gear, so they come and check that out and get familiar. And a lot of DJs will come in from out of town, be like, let me get a day pass so I can just get a refresh on the 3000s and the V10.
And what's great is that a lot of our guests, everyone from Clark Kent to the technician to Camilo, they come in here and they're just holy shit.
You want to play with all the gear, man? Yeah.
I didn't even realize this, but you guys have studio spaces where people can do live streams and they can do their Twitch streams here.
Yep. We got a whole green screen set up already, multicam, full on switcher. We also do a lot of events here. We're bringing a lot of outside talent, organizations. We got a big event coming up with DJ City, Beat Source, and Serato.
That's part of our family.
Yeah. We did a big one last year with them. We got another one coming up.
For our listeners, is there any way we could hook them up with a deal, or if they put in a R.O.A.D podcast code?
Yeah, tell me about it. What else do you have in vision for this deal? It sounds like we're well on our way. Why don't you tell them?
You're working with us where they can type in a code for R.O.A.D.
Yep.
And they'll get a month free, right?
Yeah, on our online platform. We have a whole online platform with masterclass style education.
Nice.
Different categories and everything, instruments, drums. And then we have these things that we're launching right now called Pro Paths. So you can choose, if you're a producer, you can take the Ableton Pro Path, the Logic Pro Path, Serato Studio. Goes through a wide variety of knowledge besides just stuff in that skill set and discipline.
So our R.O.A.D listeners, if you're in New York, you can check out their facility. You can do a day pass, a week pass, a monthly pass. You can check out their site. You have access to all the education online.
Soundcollective.com. We also have a YouTube channel that has some of our content from the educational courses, and all of our events are live streamed and put up there.
I hope we can come back here and use your facilities again.
Looking forward to it.
Shout out to Lefty and the Sound Collective. Thank you so much. So when you were growing up, and what was maybe the first American or New York DJs that were coming to London that you were excited about, that you saw? Or
there were definitely ones coming before them, but I was really...
Even before you could go to a club, because I remember being in junior high and high school and seeing Tribe Called Quest at the Palladium Flyers.
Right,
and I'd be
right.
fuck, I wish I could.
I was at that show, right?
You were?
I got kicked out of that show.
Yeah, as you should. What'd you do?
I didn't do anything, man. I didn't do anything.
Wagwan. What'd you do?
It's a long story. We'll go to it another time.
I guess if I was to give you the one event I was too young for that I really wanted to go to, which was like folklore in London history now, and even if you speak to Bob or Stretch now, and they talk about this shit, they weren't there, but they knew about it, which was the Ultramag show in '91.
Oh wow!
It's like a folklore kind because I don't even think Ultramag knew
how big they were.
Yeah. When they got to London,
Wait, but what? How? There was
it was like a mini riot, man. The doors got kicked off.
And then the Public Enemy show, the Public Enemy show that they used for their album in England. That was another big show. That
Bass in Your Face,
Bass in Your Face, London. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Ultramag was big because
I missed the Biggie one as well. The 95. The Biggie had. I was too young.
Really?
That was on a record, right?
Yeah.
Wait, which one though?
Live in England.
Yeah. Oh, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah. I think the most legendary show I can remember was Jay-Z when Blueprint came out, and he did a venue in Hammersmith, which was called Hammersmith Palais, and that was insane. They severely underestimated how
big
he was at that point. I think it was just before Blueprint came out, and it was a venue of 2,000 people. I want to say 5,000 people showed up. It was insane. The doors got kicked off. There was a mini riot in there. But then when Jay came on the stage, it was they just didn't even bother trying to diffuse anything. They just let it run.
Such an
It was
undeniable
insane.
album,
Yeah.
like a classic album. That shit wants to hit.
But a lot of our real famous moments were at Notting Hill Carnival because Westwood had a stage at Carnival. So if you go online right now and Google Buster's performance in like, I think it was 96, like insanity.
Wow.
Like crazy. Like go and Google, like anybody that go and Google Buster Rhymes Notting Hill Carnival 1996. Like it's ridiculous.
It's just him wilding out doing
Yeah.
like scenario and
Yeah.
like wow and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy. Oh man, I get goosebumps when I hear like all these stories.
Yeah.
But like on like, you know, when I talk to like LA motherfuckers about like
Yeah.
gang culture, and
Right,
shit
right,
like that,
right.
you know, like because it's so foreign to me and
Yeah.
it's so like glamorized.
Yeah.
It's almost like, you know, like Italian mafia stories.
Well, you know, ours is the football culture. Our equivalent of
Wait,
like,
how so though? What do you
real
mean?
gang culture in London is like in the 80s and 90s was football culture. I mean, we had gang culture, like regular street gang culture, but like
What are you like motherfuckers wearing the different football teams kind of shit?
people going to football games and killing
getting it
each
on.
other.
Really? I never heard of that. Really?
Oh man, there's like so many films like documenting that. Like it's
What is that
it's-
Guy Ritchie stuff? All that stuff.
Yeah, there's a film called Football Factory.
Really?
Rise of the Foot Soldiers is another one. Yeah.
Wait,
like,
so you're saying like the Warriors, right?
Yeah.
Classic gang New York
Yeah.
movie.
yeah.
That if there was a London version of that, it would have been
be
in a football
firms.
stadium.
It would be football firms. It would
would've
be
been-
football firms clashing on the tubes and yeah. I mean, there are UK films that show.
Really?
Yeah.
And you guys don't have guns.
See, that's a myth as well.
Oh, okay.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean,
I seen Top Boy. They rarely see. I rarely see a gun in Top
in
Boy.
Top Boy, there's mad shootouts in Top Boy.
I mean, you know, motherfuckers are stabbing each other and shit. You know.
No, I mean, I think the difference is guns are a lot harder to get.
Yeah.
Right. Because you got to come across water to get guns.
Right.
You know, like here, like New York gun laws are tough, but you could drive 2 states away and go to Kmart and buy a gun and then
Exactly,
drive
yeah,
back.
yeah.
You know, we can't do that. You need to get them shipped in. So I would say the difference is if you're like, I know regular people in New York who have guns, like normal people who have a gun. You know, like they're not in the street or like they're barely in the street or whatever. Whereas in London, no regular dude is gonna have a gun. But if you're on the road, you know, you either have one or you have access to somebody that does. Wow. Like you go to any, we call them council estates, what you guys call projects.
Yeah.
You go to any estate, it's not hard.
Wait,
to get
y'all call them estates?
yeah, council estates.
Wow.
It's like government housing.
It sounds amazing though, right?
It
Sounds great.
fancy.
Yeah.
Sounds really fancy.
Like,
Sounds
if-
fancy.
like
but
if I went to London-
the elevators smell of piss.
They
Like,
pissed
it's the
in
same
the
shit.
council estate. You know what I mean?
No. If I went to London, I met a shorty in London.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Well, I'm at the estates." I would have been like, "Damn, I just met a rich girl."
Came up.
Especially the
came
names of the
up.
estates sound nice as well.
Yeah.
Like,
Like,
if I told an American,
Is it like
yeah,
Cambridge Estates?
go
and
to
shit?
Pembury Estate.
Yeah, yeah,
sounds
see.
lovely, right?
That sounds yeah.
It's not.
That sounds lavish.
It is
Wow.
not.
I would have been asking motherfuckers here like, "Is this the right estate?" Where-
Listen,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What do they call us? Brownsville? This is the Brownsville of states.
So, wow. So I totally didn't know this about the football culture.
oh
the
yeah,
gang
it's really a thing.
So were you was around this or
I had cousins who were like in that world.
Yeah.
Like who were like the Chelsea the Chelsea's firm were called the Headhunters. I had a cousin who was a headhunter.
Now
It
this
was
is
wild culture.
This is
Like,
strictly based on the team. Like this is all about the loyalty to the team, or just the area that they represent, or the ethos or something. Like what is it based?
like could you not wear a jersey?
Oh
out?
yeah. You
It's
want-
almost like Crips and Bloods. You
I mean,
can't wear-
it depends. Like on, like if you
and you know, pardon our ignorant
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
American
What's it
questions.
about? No, absolutely.
He's like, I came here to talk about me and my music. I'm talking about.
if you were yeah, it's you know, people wore jerseys, but like let's say you live in South London and your local team is Millwall, right?
Yeah.
And Chelsea are coming to play Millwall that day, and you're walking around with your Millwall on your Chelsea. Yeah, you could get
Oh, wow.
you could get
Wow.
yourself in trouble.
Catch a
so
battle.
like, it's
yeah,
more like
yeah.
rivalry, more so. than-
Yeah, but it's deep, man. Like
Yeah.
it's like people die, or I mean, nowadays it's a little. Nowadays this shit happens more so in the smaller clubs because there's so much money in the big clubs and there's so much police presence at the stadiums and stuff. But like, yeah, like in the 80s and 90s, like I remember like growing up in Bristol, if certain teams would come and play Bristol, like stores are closing down. They're not opening the day. Yeah, because people are coming through and just trashing the place.
Oh, wow.
Shit.
Yeah, it's serious, man. That's why this is a bit of a tangent, but you see how popular Stone Island is?
Yeah.
Stone Island was a known, like, that was a uniform of a football thug.
Right.
To the point where pubs wouldn't let you in to the pub with the Stone Island badge. People used to take the Stone Island badge off.
It's like starter jackets in New York.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right, but also, it was also, Stone Island became like a street thing afterwards. Like drug dealers would wear it or whatever because it was expensive.
right.
But initially, like, it was like far right, like skinhead, hooligan, like football fans that was wearing Stone Island originally.
Really?
Yeah.
It's so funny. So that's, okay, I get it now.
And there's a culture behind that. Similar, you know how the polo culture in New York was like...
The lowlife.
Guys were like going into Macy's and taking entire racks out.
Same thing with Stone Island.
So what it was is the team I support, Liverpool, they were the first team that were most consistently playing in the European leagues because they were always... Basically, we won the league all the time and ended up playing in Europe. Mm-hmm. So the Liverpool fans would go to Italy and France and they go to these places with high fashion brands and they just like smash up shops and take shit. So they were coming back and wearing like Sergio Tacchini and Stone Island and, you know, these kind of fancy like European brands. They were wearing them on the terraces. So that's kind of what popularized a lot of those brands.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that history. I'm learning so much.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued, man. So wait, what exactly got you into DJing, like coming up?
I wanted to be, I always wanted to be a producer first.
Okay. Wait, so like who was it? Was it like Premier? Who's?
I mean, I feel like I wanted to be Premier. I wanted to be Pete Rock.
Right.
You know, I wanted to be Marley. I wanted to be DJ Scratch.
Right.
You know,
So
like,
what years are you talking about? Like what years are you basing this off of?
This is like early 90s.
yeah, I want to say like 93, 94 was when I was watching and I'd be like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Because it's like when you saw Pete Rock, Premier, Scratch,
Yeah.
you had to have these elements.
Yeah.
You had to know how to do production.
Yeah.
You had to know how to scratch.
Yep.
Because you had to scratch in a chorus or
Yep.
something. You had to have a good knowledge
Yep.
of like soul records and
Yep.
digging, and you know there was like all of these kind of things that added up to the ultimate hip hop producer.
Exactly.
Right.
And for me first, I used to listen to my parents' records and be like, oh man, that's, you know, you hear hip hop samples or whatever. And I got this job working at a pawn shop, not porn as in, you know, porn as in like, you know, like secondhand, like
pawn shop. Yeah.
Porn. There you go. PAWN.
Try to speak,
Pawn shop. And
you're in America now.
English.
Speak English. And I got this little Roland MS-1 sampler, which was like a piece of shit, basically. All you could do was like, I used to take a loop, and the way you would chop it, it would like, you would have to take the starting number and the end number, and then subtract it. So I know this loop is 9,400, and then I'd try and take another loop and make sure it was the same, and it'd hit both buttons together, and then they would play at the same time. Okay. So I'd take like a drum break and a, you know, sample or whatever. And then I started doing that, and then the more I was watching, you know, all the producers I wanted to be like, I was like, nah, I need to learn how to DJ as well.
Yeah.
You know? And then, it kind of happened from that.
Yeah,
That's dope.
That's great.
That's dope.
So then you're DJing, and then are you going to like university and like doing university parties?
No. I went back to university when I was like 35. I was a dropout. I didn't finish high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
You was into Batman things?
Batman things. No, not really. Like, you know, this is a bit somewhat unruly, I guess. But yeah, like, I wasn't. You know, I wouldn't say I was a bad kid. I would say I was adjacent.
Okay.
You know, I wasn't
Thug adjacent.
Yeah, there you go. I was never a tough guy or a, you know.
So what were you doing? What led to DJing and getting into that? And doing parties. You know what I'm saying?
So at first I never really wanted to do parties. Like my whole thing was production, and then
right?
even when I started DJing, it was like all about mixtapes and doing blends, and like that was and then I guess, you know, you hit 18 years old and because for us we're in clubs at 18, you know, and then you know, clubs are fun, man. There's a lot of women in there. I want to be in there. I want to be the center of attention in there. And I suddenly, you know, you start to realize that, this thing that I'm doing that I enjoy can translate into, You know,
it's funny, like when you grow up on 90s hip hop, like early 90s hip hop.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you're into production and DJing.
Yeah.
And then when you're finally old enough to go out, it's like
It dies.
everything you grew up loving, you're like, wait, oh shit, like this doesn't translate to what's really happening in these clubs.
100%, especially in that era, because, you know, I turned 18 in 97.
Yeah.
97 was such a pivotal switch in hip hop that, like, you know, like I talk to Stretch all the time about, you know, New York, you know, club climate, and he was like, yeah, you know, in 95 you go to the club and you'd hear OC's Time's Up, and you'd hear like Smith and Wesson, you know, and then in 97 everything changed. You know,
so
like,
I got a question. Even like Goldie in New York, when they were playing OC Time's Up, and like they were playing like, you know, like I don't know, like what all these like hip hop 90s backpack music. Were there women there?
Yeah, it was women there.
Yeah.
Really?
It was
but there was more men, right?
It was way more men in certain clubs for certain DJs.
Yeah.
If you knew how to play for women, you had women.
Right. I just can't, like, I just can't picture, like, you know, like in a regular nightclub, it would be like 60-70% women and 30% men in most cases.
But you got to remember, it's a phenomenon for women as well. When Mobb Deep comes out, women want to hear that shit too.
Because you think about it now, like, bro, if you play Pop Smoke or Rowdy Rebel, women love that shit.
Right.
In 20 years' time, when the sound is totally different and you try and play young kids this like rowdy, aggressive music and be like, yeah, women were wilding out to this.
See,
nobody's going to believe
the
it.
thing is why it was more women, or it seemed like it was more women in 97, is because the look, the lifestyle became a little bit more dressed up.
Yeah.
Girls had to wear it a little bit more revealing stuff.
Yeah.
So you noticed them more. Before, they was just in Carhartt, you know, they was in Bubble Goose.
But that's what I'm saying.
Like
it was so underground, you know what I mean?
Nah, because the tunnel was when it had women at the tunnel.
Right.
It was a lot more men,
but
it still had women at the tunnel, though.
Even when I was in junior high and high school, all the shorties in my school were listening to like Janet Jackson and Paula Abdul. They weren't listening to like...
Yeah, but you had the ones that knew the words to Mobb Deep and Nas as well. Come on, when Nas came out.
I definitely know girls in London that I came up with that can rap, you know, every word to Come Clean or like, you know.
I'm sure, but it was kind of like, and it was like, it was a little rare. It was rare back then.
I don't think so.
More rare than now.
I don't think so.
Nah?
Maybe it's an age thing, because if you were in junior high and you were like, in, like maybe the older...
I was grown, so, you know what I mean?
But this is something
I'm trying to big man ting me, right?
No, but this is something I find this really interesting, actually, because I talk about this a lot with, there's two younger guys that run this party in, they do this thing at Record Room called Suede, which is an R&B party, straight R&B vinyl party. And they're much younger than me. They're late 20s, early 30s, right? And the way different generations consume old music is so different, because what you listen to, like if you were in junior high in 95 and you were in the clubs in 95, the way you consume music and the way you consume music was so different. So there might have been stuff that you would have listened to like that was on the radio, which you would never have played in the clubs. And I'm realizing it now when I go out to these like throwback parties and I'm hearing what they're playing in R&B clubs. I'm like, I would have never played this record when it came out. It was a big record. It was huge on the radio. Like, I'll give you an example, like the slow jam culture. Like, I go to a club now, they'll play Deborah Cox, Nobody's Supposed to Be Here at 1 a.m. And I'm like, yeah, this was on the radio, but who the fuck was playing this? Like, nobody, I don't remember a DJ ever playing a record like that, you know? But because these kids consumed it via the radio, because they weren't in the clubs at the time, to them it's a huge record, you know? And I think sometimes, like, even records that I would have played like in the 2000s, like when I speak to my older friends here, whether it be Stretch or whoever, they'll be like, no, I wouldn't touch that. That was corny. But to me, I'm like, oh shit, I grew up on that. Like, I was 10 when that came out. I loved it, you know?
For sure.
What's good, everyone? This is P-Dot from Reflections of a DJ, the R.O.A.D podcast. Whether you're just discovering the podcast or a day one listener, if you've been loving the content and want more, here's your chance to support the pod, get closer to the action, and unlock exclusive content by joining our Patreon. For just $5 a month, you can join our Tier 1 R.O.A.D subscription. This is for our loyal listeners who want early access to new episodes 3 to 4 weeks ahead, your name in the credits of every video episode, and access to our exclusive R.O.A.D Edits pack. For the hardcore supporters, we've got our Tier 2 R.O.A.D for Life subscription for just $10 a month. This is the all-in package. You'll get everything from Tier 1, plus a monthly bonus episode, early access to our exclusive R.O.A.D 10 and R.O.A.D Talk interviews, behind-the-scenes content, our In the Crate series, along with unreleased projects. This is your chance to support the podcast and get more of the content that you love. Join the family today at patreon.com/R.O.A.D podcast. Check the link in our descriptions. We appreciate you, and let's keep this journey going.
So
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where different generations like absorb the music through different platforms and through different outlets.
Right.
Yeah. But it's way more evident now.
Yeah.
When these kids are like singing.
their throwbacks are crazy.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that they play, I'm just like, I would never have touched this. And then the stuff that like when I'm playing a 90s R&B set, I'm going to play like, Shy with Jay-Z tonight. I'm going to play Horace Brown. I'm going to play, Gina Thompson. I'm going to those are the records I remember being huge, but they just go right over the heads of the young kids. They just want to hear Montel Jordan or, like Mark Morrison, Return of the Mac or
It's funny. Recently there's been a resurgence of Tupac, How Do You Want It?
Yeah, because
I've noticed that.
because of the TikTok.
Yeah.
joint.
It was like a TikTok joint,
Yeah.
But it's like if we played that 2 years ago or a year ago,
Yeah.
it would have been like, what the fuck are you
Yeah.
playing?
So the craziest one to me is Casey and JoJo's All My Life being played in nightclubs.
Yeah.
That's wild to me. It's wild. How? Because my experience when I was younger, slow jams got played at the end of the night, and you were trying to get people laid as a DJ. You were playing slow jams to try and. So we would play slow music, but it was sexy shit. Not trying to make people cry.
Yeah.
Some of the records that I don't want to hear Boys to Men End of the Road at the end of a party. That's wild.
So in the U.S., I feel like R&B, slow jam R&B, or they had an emergence during the day parties.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So when my first Everyday People, I played All My Life, which was maybe in 2000.
You actually played Casey and JoJo?
Yeah, I played it 2016 or 17. Wow. And
Wow.
it was at Everyday People in L.A.
I take it
Wow.
you never played that shit in a party.
I played it at a wedding.
Yeah, right.
No, but it was it was one of those things. And you
Yeah.
go into Craig David, Fill Me In,
Oh, wow.
and
Oh, you was out here wilding.
Yeah.
well, I mean, that was, I don't know if it was that early, but it was pretty early when he was doing, Everyday People at Jardine in LA.
Right.
And then,
So I think, do you know what's a testament to it as well? That I know these records weren't getting played because you can't find them on 12s. They don't exist on 12-inch. You can't find a 12-inch of, maybe a UK import, But I have a bunch of slow jams that I bought when I was in London that even I go on Discogs now and I'm like, they didn't exist over here.
You know what? It's because it's a different era, and I come from a record background. So
Right.
when I'm digging for beats and stuff like that, I see these R&B records, and I'm like, I don't have a problem finding records at all.
But
yo, do you know Aaliyah album is $150?
Oh yeah, it's wild.
What?
Yeah.
I just saw Aaliyah album in the $2 bin a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
I'm like,
But I mean more
where you shopping?
those things are expensive, but I mean stuff all right, you remember High Five, Quality Time, or the Rude Boys Written All Over Your Face.
Oh.
You remember those kind of records?
Those records were only bootleg. Now I'll tell you that.
Or UK.
Yeah,
Because we got them.
there was an import. There was an import. Yeah.
Understanding.
No,
same
Understanding
thing.
was that was out.
Yeah.
That was out.
But it was a bootleg.
No, that was a release. That was
Understanding?
Understanding, yeah.
Escape?
That was a release. Quality Time wasn't. Quality Time was a bootleg, and Rude Boys was only on the album.
But it depends.
But we got it.
Yeah,
we got it,
import, yeah.
But it also depends if there was an upbeat remix, a club remix.
Right.
Yeah, because Understanding, they had a
then it would
remix
have
of Understanding on a regular 12-inch.
You sure you're not thinking of the other one with the Teddy Pendergrass? No? Because I have a UK, or it might not even be, it might be a Netherlands pressing.
Nah,
of Understanding.
Understanding was out.
But
that came out.
Yeah, Rude Boys.
Because I
you had
hated
to
that
get
record.
UK.
I had to know that. I was like,
I
don't know this shit.
Did you ever?
You weren't like an R&B dude like that?
No.
in the 90s?
That
He is the
song,
R&B, yeah.
That song in particular, I was
Yeah.
like, oh.
You ever been to Beach Street?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, he was
Of course.
the man at
no,
Beach Street.
The crazy thing was, I didn't know who you were when I was coming to Beat Street until I started going to clubs and I made the connection. when I was coming out here.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I listen. My pilgrimage to New York was Beat Street, Rock and Soul, and Fat Beats. Always. I used to buy.
That's the trifecta.
Yeah, I used to come. Bro, I used to come and buy a record case and just.
What were you looking for when you came like to New York for like digging or buying records?
So I would go to A1 and I would go to, was it Sound Library?
Yeah, Sound Library was out.
For digging for sample stuff.
Gotcha.
When I wanted to dig for club stuff, Beat Street. When I wanted my underground shit, I go to Fat Beats.
Right.
Yeah.
So were you buying primarily like whatever is hot right now, or you buying like catalog? Let me buy stuff for
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. So, there was a time in like the mid 2000s where they were reissuing a lot of like late 80s, early 90s hip hop stuff.
They would
Like
drop.
issue.
Yeah.
Right.
I see how you said it. Reissue.
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 They were bootlegs.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I
Tell me
would
to describe the record. Describe the record though. How did the record look? when you were talking about-
Right. Slightly faded.
Yeah. it did look like Xerox color copies.
Yeah.
Like the
cardboard
covers.
in the
Yeah,
inside.
yeah.
You could, yeah.
Yeah.
but
Like that's
you know-
when like the Reasonable Doubt albums, the double albums would come out, right?
Right.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of there was a lot of stuff where like
Wait, was that-
before Discogs I was still trying to like plug holes in my collection
Right.
from the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Right.
But then like buying new stuff, I used to buy. I'd love to ask you about this as well because all of the Crib Underground and Killer Cut stuff, like I used to clean up in Beat Street.
I mean, this is
So what would you like to ask?
this is the man responsible. A little bit.
I was gonna say
Okay, relax.
that's what
I didn't point out. I didn't say which man. I said this is the man.
Right.
responsible.
Wagwan.
Allow it.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like these are so specific to Beat Street. There has to be a connection.
No,
there,
because
but-
they sold them in different places and stuff of that nature. What songs are you talking about?
Even remember those colorful rainbow bootlegs with like Prince, the best of Prince.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There could be someone in this room that was responsible for that.
Why?
No, so there's a few of those that I'm still looking for, man.
Your waistband, right?
Yeah.
There's a waistband.
There's because you can't buy them on Discogs because they've all been removed from.
Right.
Oh, they have.
Yeah, there's a couple of records.
But to
I'm
tell you the
still-
truth, those are worth more than
Yeah.
actually some
mean,
actual records.
Yeah.
For a vinyl DJ playing,
Yeah.
those are vital.
Yeah.
Because you're not gonna play any of those songs from the fucking from the LP album.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they mix with different albums.
God-
and then,
God bless-
And then they're loud.
Yeah. God bless the man or woman who bootleg that shit.
Allegedly.
Yo, the
made it possible.
the one with Buju's Driver A on it. I'm still trying to find that shit. Because they're harder to the ones like the 06, 07 releases.
Because that's when vinyl really was like no vinyl.
Yeah.
So wait, you're doing like, I want to talk about Living Proof, but it seems like you're doing a lot of vinyl parties in Brooklyn.
Yeah. So I don't know how I kind of fell into doing that. So
It just kind of happened organically where there was just more vinyl parties.
So the first vinyl party that I really paid attention to was the guys I was talking about before, the Suede party, which was happening at Bunton's in Bushwick. And then they moved it to Record Room.
When was this around?
I want to say just as we came out of the pandemic.
2021,
Yeah.
22? Yeah.
And I'm talking about R&B and hip hop vinyl parties. I know a lot of the house DJs and disco guys have been doing vinyl stuff, forever. So they were the first guys I saw that was doing R&B and hip hop parties on vinyl. And then my boy Carl Brissot, he linked me in with the guys at Record Room. And Record Room's kind of become a bit of a phenomenon now. Like
They're beautiful looking.
oh, it's amazing.
Beautiful looking spot.
It's amazing. It's like it's exactly what you want as a vinyl DJ, because there was a few places that popped up, a few of these kind of listening lounges, and it's like I don't want to just play to like middle-aged white chin strokey dudes that want to hear like obscure jazz. Like, like that's not fun to me.
What do they call them? Like selectors?
Yeah, like that shit is. But Record Room was the first place I went to, and I'm like, oh, this is a party. This is actually like,
Right.
There's groups of hot women that want to dance. And I get to play vinyl, and they're slightly older. So
And on top of that, it's like they don't know what the next record is. They don't know what you're gonna play.
Yeah.
And they're just totally with it. And they're dressed, they look good.
And they understand the concept. This isn't a request party.
Right.
This is like
most of them do. I've had a
Okay.
few. I had a girl come up to me the other day and ask to play Sexy Red, and I'm like, it's not that kind of party.
Oh,
Like,
shit.
You can hear that in any club in New York right now. This is not what we're doing here. She's like, can't you just plug your phone in or something? I was like, get the fuck out. Like, what are you doing? This is not what we're doing here.
Wow. But she didn't get the concept that all the other songs were like a little bit more retro or whatever?
No.
well, she didn't even get the concept that you're putting
Right.
vinyl and putting a needle on. some
And to be fair, we do play new music there.
Yeah.
Like and this is what I've found exciting about playing there is like I'm buying newer records now and I'm playing like like they're releasing like Cardi's releasing 12 inches. There was a ASAP 12. There was a Travis Scott 7. There was like all of these and these are official as well. So it's like we're now getting to a point where like it's not like I'm going in there playing, I don't know, Sexy Red and whatever, but like I'll throw a Nicki record in, I'll throw just so it doesn't just feel like a retro party.
Like playing a Bad Bunny is a flex. To tell you that strip, you got it on vinyls, like, that's a flex.
But it's also like if you play like 5 throwbacks in a row, and then you drop like a Bad Bunny or like an Ice Spice,
right,
bootleg vinyl.
Yeah.
I know. I go to like Boogie Blind's crib,
right,
like go through his records.
Yeah,
he has all these like unofficial vinyl releases of like poppin' songs,
right,
like Pink Patches and
right.
There's all these like records. I'm like, like this never released. He's like, I know.
Well,
but,
funny enough, Ice Spice did her EPs of there's an official Ice Spice.
But before there was like all these bootlegs out of like these newer songs that came out.
Mind your business, Cricket. Let them cook.
I didn't know you still working like that.
Let them cook. Let them
You find out you're doing Ice Spice bootlegs now.
But for me, I think it hits harder when these kids start out of like a.
So I think there's a tightrope to walk, right? Because actually, I saw you talking about this in one of the podcasts.
There was
an
Instagram reel,
yeah, and I think it's important to play new stuff. I also don't. I think if you're just playing what you play on Serato, then what's the point?
No.
Right?
Yeah.
So I also think there's and you guys would know this as DJs, there's this like, if you're going to play more mainstream music while you're playing like a more kind of credible set, you have to touch on it very carefully because once you hit a certain point, it's very hard to come back out of that. So it's like if you're trying to get off like late 90s, 2000 stuff, once you start playing Rihanna, like it's very hard to go away from that kind of like big, well-known pop record. So when I play newer stuff in my set, I'm very careful just to kind of pepper it in and never go too heavy into that kind of bag because then you just can't, like, it's very hard to go back and play Nori Bam from TV after you just played Rihanna's work.
Right.
So
you just got to kind of like sprinkle it and like catch people off guard a little bit. Yeah.
Right.
It's a taste. It's
and then bring it back. Yeah.
Very much about taste.
Yeah.
For sure. And so like I think it's great that there's like a lot of like motherfuckers that I know.
Yeah.
That were like, yo, like I'm working more than I ever did because there's like vinyl. There's all these vinyl parties.
Yeah.
In Brooklyn, there's almost a vinyl part. There's multiple vinyl parties every day.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm working, bro.
Man, I did shout out to my boy Ben Blacken because he's killing it.
I've heard that name around a lot.
Yeah, he's a New Yorker. He's a little younger. He's like, I want to say like maybe late 30s. I'm not trying to throw his age out there, but he's very much like of the culture. He came up under Clark, and like
That's dope. That's dope.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, he's very talented. Great record collection. Really knows what he's doing. He started doing a party at Record Room. Now he does it at Jolene. It's called The Missing Ingredient, and like he sells 300-400 tickets, packs that room out, and it's a very New York crowd. Like a lot of the vinyl parties is kind of like transplant crowds that are just a bit interested, like, oh, he's playing vinyls. They're playing vinyls, whereas Ben Blacken's crowd is very much like, it's a New York crowd. They want to hear classic Biggie records and classic J records and 90s R&B and like, you can play 80s R&B and soul in there and they get it. The reggae sets, they get it. So yeah, his movement, he actually just, he opened for J. Cole at the Garden.
Wow.
Yeah, so his trajectory is...
He was playing vinyl?
No, he wasn't playing, but he was playing hip hop. Apparently Cole told him, I just want you to play real New York shit.
Right.
So he was playing like Bucktown and Soundboy Burial to like
That's dope.
20,000 people at the Garden, which is
That's
a
crazy.
beautiful thing. You know?
So, but you're juggling your gigs in Brooklyn with Serato and
Yeah, I still
everything.
do the like, regular Serato or USBs, or I know that's a contentious
No, I mean,
topic amongst DJs right now. But yeah, I'll do the.
did you know coming to New York that you were going to be like, I'm going to focus on the Brooklyn scene and not Manhattan?
No, not really. Because when I first started coming out here, everything was Manhattan.
Yeah.
In the early 2000s, bro, I wasn't going to Brooklyn, like past downtown Brooklyn to go to Beat Street. Like going clubbing in Brooklyn was a wild concept to like an out of town guy coming in 2002.
Yeah.
So everything was in Manhattan. I was, APT, Santos,
sure.
Lotus,
Yeah.
Eugene's,
And-
Limelight, I used to go to all of those places, and that was kind of my vision of, but obviously that world is
It's
a
been
wrap.
shifted to
Yeah.
now it's Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Like Brooklyn is kind of the epicenter of like
Like club culture, yeah.
club culture right
Yeah.
now. It's interesting because it's like I've been spinning every so often in Manhattan,
Right.
and more so in the past year, it's been like I've been getting like the venues and the operators saying like, oh, like we're moving away from hip hop.
Yeah.
We're actually like play more 80s,
Yeah.
more Depeche Mode,
Right.
more new disco,
Yeah.
no EDM, no
Yeah.
reggaeton, like
Yeah,
more
yeah.
dance and it's like it's shifting to like this disco,
Yeah.
like more.
They're saying something without
Yeah.
saying it, man.
Yeah, it's like and it's
Yeah.
almost, and when you're looking at some of the Manhattan, like there's still hip hop in Manhattan.
Yeah.
It's just not like It's not like what it used to be.
Right.
Like you don't have that One Oak hip hop.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Or like that up and down hip hop.
No.
And
No.
probably like Little
Greenhouse
Sister.
and all of
Yeah,
that.
like
Yeah.
Little Sister.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple other venues have
Yeah.
it in Manhattan.
Yeah.
But it's like if you want like literally dance hall, reggaeton.
Yeah.
Like a whole variety
Yeah.
of like
You go
club
up.
music, you go to Brooklyn.
I mean, MoMA's really the only one with a good Manhattan party at
Yeah,
Levain.
dance.
Yeah.
Yeah, dance.
Yeah. I can't think of anywhere else in Manhattan where I'm like,
But that's like a dance party.
Right,
It's
right.
like I'm a piano.
yeah.
I
mean, but
house,
he'll
everything.
still play
yeah.
like dance hall and a little bit of
a little bit,
yeah,
like a
yeah.
sprinkling. Yeah.
I feel like more so than it was before. Like I played there 2 weeks ago. I played with Millhouse, and Millhouse was definitely leaning more. Into,
shout to Millhouse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Millhouse is a guy, man.
Indeed.
Yeah.
He was definitely playing a little bit more R&B and hip hop. I was playing a lot of dancehall, so I feel like they are. I know MoMA likes to keep it very dance orientated, but it definitely feels like it's opening up a little bit.
So when you moved to New York,
Mm.
you didn't think that you would be building your bones in Brooklyn like you are right now.
I kind of knew that I wanted to live in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And I feel like, because I was coming out here before I moved out here, so I was definitely seeing that shift, moving more into Brooklyn. But I don't think I was aware that like it would almost solely be in Brooklyn,
right.
Because there was like Khalil had started his party, Back to Life, which was at Louis and Chan at the time. So I was doing that, and I was doing. Where else was I doing it? I was doing a few like downtown places when I first got here. But then, yeah, it just gradually, especially like post-pandemic, like everything ended up in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So professionally, when did it click for you? Like, I'm good here.
To the point where I'm like, I don't have to look at other ways to make money. I'm just making money as a DJ. I would say about 2 or 3 years ago. And I was starting to get there before the pandemic, and then the pandemic just
Right.
crashed everything, so I almost had to start again. But, I came here with an advantage, man. Like, I got here and two of my closest like DJ friends here were MoMA and Stretch.
Right.
So, and both of those guys have really helped put me in a position where I could thrive. So, yeah, it's definitely a privilege to have both of those two guys in your corner.
But you've built such a movement in London with Living Proof.
Right.
And then, you given them literally a home in London.
Oh, completely.
You know what
I
I'm
mean,
saying?
like, especially like with me and Moma met when we were almost like the equivalent of each other in each respective city, you know? So like now obviously he's gone clear, you know?
Yeah.
But when I met Moma, like, I think, you know, I don't want to talk out of turn, but I feel like him playing at Living Proof was just as much of a thing as me coming over here and playing at Everyday People.
For sure.
At that time.
Yeah.
You know, they were kind of like the equal things in each respective city.
I mean, Moma told me this, and as a quote, he said, you know, he said Snips does more to maintain New York club culture and the golden era of club music more than any actual New York DJ would.
Damn.
Wow.
That's
Meaning that you'll throw in some MOP in the middle of like a club set. And you'll throw in a big pun.
Yeah.
But you'll bring it back to kind of like say this is New York.
100%.
And I'm not just gonna like cater to transplants or like
100%.
whatever's popping right now.
I think you know, I'm super flattered by that comment.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna you know, especially sitting next to someone who is like a New York legend, like legend in the clubs. I'm not gonna be like, yeah, that's right. But no, for me, it was really important when I got here. You know, like I'm so influenced and inspired by New York culture, and you know, coming from a city where there are so many similarities. When I got here, to see how New York's changed because of so many transplants.
Yeah.
For me, it was so important to be like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't come here to change the culture. You know, like I came here to add to it and to try and uplift it. And then especially seeing as how diluted that's becoming, for me, it's like, you know, it's important to uphold that.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, it means a lot to me. And like, you know, I'm a hip hop guy, man. I'm a rappity rap.
Well, you hold it at such a high regard too.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
especially
absolutely.
with Living Proof, that was
Yeah.
the basis of your party.
Right. And
Very
also,
much.
man, like, you know, to be out here where like I'm an outsider, and I feel like everybody that I've met who to me, you know, being around the legends of this culture and like being embraced and being shown love from, you know, so many people, that the idea, you know, like I said, you know, Stretch is a great friend, but being around Bobito or being around Clark Kent before he passed, rest in peace, you know, like being around these guys who, like, I would have jumped out a window at 13 years old thinking I was ever going to be rubbing shoulders with these guys. So for these guys to really embrace me and like really encourage me, like, you know, like what Moma just said, like I get that sentiment a lot from people who I looked at as giants. So for me, it's like, I almost feel like there's a responsibility, like, damn, the people that inspired you to do this genuinely believe that you're contributing something to what they built. So for me, I feel like I have to take that seriously. I have to really, you know.
And you had a lot of these DJs like do guest spots at Living Proof in London, right?
Oh man, we've had damn. I mean, Moma and Stretch obviously both played Living Proof. We had Ali Shaheed Muhammad.
Wow.
Play J Period, Just Blaze has played, Vashti's played. Oh man, there's more. I don't want to forget anybody, but yeah,
It's crazy. You guys were around for 16 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Your last party was in what, 2023?
Yes. Yeah.
What was the deciding factor to end it? It's just
MF Doom.
Well, I think really like out the four of us that founded it, three of us live in the States now.
Yeah.
You know, Budgie's in LA, me and Khalil were here, and Raj just has not much interest in doing hip hop parties anymore. You know, he's more in the kind of techno world. He's managing a band. You know, like it's not really his focus. So I kind of wanted to continue it, but the other thing is this, right? We're all on different pages, and I really wanted to keep it a traditional hip hop night, right? Which meant it would have gradually become smaller, but at the same time, like I was happy to grow old with our audience a little bit. Whereas I know Khalil he's a lot more tapped into kind of like newer music than I am. Like he's way more into like Afro beats and like, don't get me wrong, I play all of that stuff as well, but he's definitely more plugged into it, and his sets were going more in that direction. And I always felt if we're gonna do a party that's like a new party, we're competing with new kids who are really of that era.
Right.
I don't want to compete with them. They're going to do it better because they care more about it. So where I always felt like I could shine as well, like stay in my lane of doing what I really care about. And even if it gets smaller as we get older, because naturally people will start to age out of going clubbing, we're still going to have something that has a niche, you know. And I just think between the four of us, we were all on kind of different pages as to what we wanted to do. And, you know.
Essentially, like when you guys started Living Proof in 2007, what was the market like? And what did Living Proof offer in that market?
So that's a really good question. I'll tell you what really inspired me to want to do Living Proof. It was APT. It was coming here and going to APT, because I didn't like where hip hop was going in the 2000s, and I was coming out to a lot of clubs here, and I'm like, I don't want to hear, like, this was like mid 2000s Soulja Boy snap music era,
right?
And that was what was getting played in all the clubs, and I was just like, I don't like, this is not moving me.
I don't want to play. Like, I don't want to play Laffy Taffy.
Right, you know, and I was playing Laffy Taffy, you know, but I didn't, you know, I didn't want to play that. And I came out here and I went to APT, and I was like, damn, it's a small club, but it's packed, and they're not playing any of that shit. You know, like Rich and those guys were really playing classics.
Shout out to Rich Medina.
Absolutely.
Bobito was there.
Yeah. You know, I've seen Spinner there. I've seen Ninth Wonder. And you know, seeing them kind of, if they were playing new music, it was more in the like soulful house or neo soul kind of. And I just thought, oh man, there's you know, we can do something that is like almost like the antithesis of what current club culture is. So that was really the inspiration to start Living Proof. We were at a very small venue, fit like 100 people. It was crazy because they only had a license till 1. Now it's normal to do parties that go from like 8 till 1, but back then it wasn't, right? So we threw this party, and it got to the point after a couple of months.
Wait,
like,
I'm sorry. Wait, say that again.
The party would start at 8 and finish at 1.
Oh,
which wasn't normal.
Wait, what time do clubs close?
Like 3, 4.
3, 4.
Yeah.
Well, why till 1?
It was a bar. They only had a license till 1.
Oh, interesting.
Now it's normal. There's so many parties that finish at 1 here, you know, or finish at 12 or whatever. But it got to the point where we'd turn up at 8 o'clock to set up, and there'd be like hundreds of people on the street.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was like insanity. So we just really realized like we have something. And then,
so what was the formula, the music formula?
So Budge would always warm up, and he would always play vinyl. At that point, he wasn't on Serato.
Yeah.
And he was very much in his like boogie bag. So he would turn up and play like 80s, you know, like post-disco,
80s
boogie
R&B,
and soul, like that. And then we all kind of had different styles. Me and Khalil were probably the most similar in the sense that we would play more club stuff. Raj was very much like, you know, he would play a lot of like Dilla, Tribe Called Quest, you know, that kind of stuff. And when you've only got a room full of 100 people, even if 20 of them know all those records, it carries a vibe, you know?
Yeah.
I was definitely, I didn't like it all the time because, like I said, I'm a hip hop head, but I was probably the only one out the 4 of us that could really play like R&B and really play dancehall and, you know, really play like club classics and stuff. So I always found that I would end up having to play like the dancehall set or just to balance things out. Whereas I wanted to play the Dilla records as well, you know? And then as we kind of like, I feel like we all, as we grew, we all kind of shared our strengths with each other. So like, you know, Khalil would start playing more R&B and get more into dancehall, and then Raj would do the same, and then Budgie got Serato and he would play more like newer stuff as well. So we all kind of shared each other's.
So you were mixing, you would play some new shit.
Yeah.
And everything.
Yeah.
And how did it evolve in the 2010s? That party.
Well, I think it was that we were all very like in 2007 when we started, we went into current shit.
Yeah.
We might play, I don't know, what was a big record in like 07, 08? We might play
Kanye.
Yeah, we play Kanye stuff. We might play a Millie, you know. But we weren't playing Laffy Taffy. We weren't playing like Soulja Boy. We weren't playing, you know, like we played the J records or the Kanye records or the, you know, the stuff that was like mainstream and clubby, but not.
It's almost like New York elitist hip hop.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit, because a lot of South people be like,
It felt a little snobby.
A little bit.
snobby.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you know,
We might play T.I. We might play a T.I.
to base a whole party because you don't like to play Laffy Taffy is kind of crazy though.
I mean, no, it wasn't just that. It was more like,
but this was like the ringtone hip hop era.
But those records ring off right now. If you play those records right now, you're gonna get the highlight of your party. Maybe playing Buy You a Drink.
But there was a handful
You know what
of
I mean?
DJs and a handful of like music hip hop heads. That were like, hip hop is dying. Because of Soulja Boy. Because of them franchise boys. The white tee era. Like,
but there's always been a era of music that just really wasn't that good, but it passed, and then you got to the
it was fun. I actually loved playing.
I didn't have a problem with it like that. I wanted to start a party.
I know exactly what you mean, because there's certain New Yorkers that were like, oh, we'll play like Young Blood's Damn.
Right.
But we won't play like, we won't play Laffy Taffy. We won't play these other joints.
Right. You'll play Knuck If You Buck, but you're not going to play...
Yeah. We'll play...
It's going down.
We'll play like Little Flip Game Over.
Yeah.
But we won't play this other shit.
Right. And I think... It wasn't necessarily that I hated those records. I wasn't a particular fan, but I used to play them because they did the job, right? But it was more a case of like, this is what everything is now. Like, can we do something that's different? Like, let's give people an alternative that don't want to hear that stuff, that just want to hear like, kind of more classic sounding stuff. And then I guess like 2011, 2012, when that whole like...
That's a tough time, 2011, to have a hip hop party.
Well, that's when that whole kind of ASAP...
right.
Yeah,
like all of that thing.
You got a lot of joints in 2011.
That's when we started to embrace more new stuff.
But it's also like the emergence of EDM.
No,
but we were so far removed.
You were so far away from that.
Yeah. 2011 is like Wale, Drake.
Yeah.
So you were like a welcoming alternative to all this EDM and dance music that was hitting.
Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, talking about Soulja Boy, I remember one night really early on in the party being like, yo, make some noise, because right when You came out.
Yeah.
Be like, yo, who wants to hear that new Soulja Boy? And there was some people that made noise. Like, get the fuck out. This is nothing. I remember that being something that happened at one of the nights that we did.
Remember when 50 Cent had to like co-sign him?
Yeah.
He was just like, nah, y'all gotta show love.
I think the whole Ice-T thing really was the real.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He went like to war with Ice-T, or Ice-T went to war with him.
And then Ice-T's son was like, I don't like Soulja Boy either. I don't fuck with Soulja Boy either, right?
But they was like, yo, he's a grown ass man. What the fuck are you talking about?
And Jizza had the war with him for a minute too.
Jizza from Wu-Tang?
Yeah. There was
I didn't even hear about that.
So tell me something in New York, right? Because I have a thing, like, I'm misremembering. When I was coming out here when Soulja Boy first dropped, I don't remember hearing him in most of the clubs, because I felt like, I remember hearing everything else, like, you know, it's going down, but I felt like Soulja Boy's audience was teenagers that weren't necessarily in the club at that time.
Nah, that song rang off. Girls liked that song.
Yeah,
I mean,
in some rooms.
At the time, or was it a few years later?
I think that's the misconception that people want to remember, because Soulja Boy is the trippy red. He's the easy face,
right?
To pin that type of era on.
Yeah,
but Soulja Boy shit rang off. He had way more than one song.
I'll give you the perfect example. He's talking about certain rooms where it did ring the fuck off, and it did ring the fuck off.
Yeah,
but it was also seen as kind of like you're playing Little Bow Wow.
Right.
You know, like you're playing kids' music, and we're adults. We don't listen to adults. Right. We don't listen to kids.
Like
shit.
I felt
a
like
lot of it was visually. It was just that, yo, this guy, he has on a long T-shirt. Yeah. He's a young kid.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing? Like, that's not even real.
I mean, that's why you had like kind of like. I mean, this was a little bit before that, but you had like the Jay-Z, like, I wear button-ups and, you know.
Right.
We don't wear like jerseys and shit, you know?
This is the same time.
Yeah.
This is the same time.
I'm not wearing like jerseys and shit.
Another thing is, too, is that this was the era of finding out music from the internet.
Yeah.
You didn't have that connection with finding out, oh, this guy's a rapper, let me see what he does.
Yeah.
This guy just popped out of nowhere. And it's like, it's a phenomenon.
Also, for DJs, you didn't have to buy it.
This is the beginning of the internet, getting your music off of the internet. This is the beginning of that.
Right.
Like, let's be really honest, right? If you went to a record store in 2008 and you'd never heard Soulja Boy, and you got a stack of promos off the wall, and you were just needle dropping to see what you were going to spend $7 on or whatever, and you drop the needle on that record, you'd be like, I'm not paying $7 for this. you know. But when it's just like, oh, this is hot, it's in my inbox. All right, fuck it, I'll play it.
Yeah, but you hadn't been buying records for almost 4 or 5 years through LimeWire and all that other shit. What was that shit that was going on like at that time when they were all the free music,
Napster?
Napster.
Yeah.
Napster was out at that time. You had not been buying. You was sharing music on MySpace or that for like 3-4 years. So it was just this was the first one where you actually discovered it.
But that's when there was like the
on the internet.
That was the emergence of like the CD book DJ.
Yeah.
The DJ that came in with a CD book. And like opened that shit on your turntables.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Hey,
which is equivalent.
I was that guy. I was that guy.
Which was equivalent. It's equivalent.
You was in the CD books? You was in the CD books?
Dude, my first couple of years and doing Lotus, I was doing off of CD.
Really?
Hell yeah!
It's the equivalent of
you had to have the new record,
and
it wasn't on vinyl.
It wasn't on vinyl.
This was what year? Like what? 04, 05?
05, 06.
You know how DJs get pissed when like a DJ
comes and puts a controller.
Put a controller. It's the same thing with that CD.
Hey, I wouldn't give a fuck.
No, but and this is something I wanted to talk to you guys about as well, because I'm a big like I hate like equipment snobbery, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you're a good DJ, you can use anything.
Yeah.
It don't matter if you're using CDs. It don't matter if you're using. And I think that's a big like. I wanted to touch on this because so many people have had this conversation. You know when you brought Mike Nasty up here?
Yeah, Mike Nasty.
Yeah, Mike's my guy. Shout out to Mike. The conversation around USBs. I don't know if you saw in the comments, but
oh yeah, it was crazy.
Someone put in the comments, they were like, it was Soup actually. Shout out to Soup. He was like, only person I've seen kill it on USBs was Snips. And then it became a big like talking point. And I think there's this thing where like, it's like, all right, in 2005, there were more trash DJs using CDs than there were using turntables. But that doesn't mean everybody that uses CDs is trash.
Right.
Right? But it meant if you were trash, that was the easier option.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we're seeing that now with this conversation around USBs and Serato. It's like, I don't think USB DJs are trash. I just think if you are trash, that's probably going to be the option you go for. Wow. But it doesn't mean, do you know what I mean?
So, are you thinking that that's the shortcut, or that would be the thinking?
It's the least investment that you need to make.
Gotcha.
So it's like if you're not really that invested in this, you know.
Gotcha.
Well, to defend Mike Nasty.
Oh no! I know what he was trying to say, and I agree with him.
But just to in defense of Mike Nasty, he specifically said, the younger DJs that are coming up, they're kind of lazy because they just want to go straight to sticks.
Yeah.
But he wasn't talking about like the veteran DJs who are like on Serato,
no, absolutely
who switch to sticks. Because he specifically said, I'm not talking about those DJs.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the younger DJs, you know, the influencers who are just going to sticks.
100%. And I know exactly what he was trying to, like, Mike has booked me. So the whole thing of like, oh, you like, I know who he was talking about, and I know his comment got taken out of.
Yeah.
But it's not so much about what Mike was saying, it's more the conversations that I saw pop up after that, where I'm just like, damn, people allow equipment to do a lot of heavy lifting for their bullshit, you know? Like,
I agree with I agree with some of what he said.
I agree with pretty much all of what he said.
I don't agree with all of it, but I do think that the reason why younger DJs want to be on USBs is because optically it gives the impression of a boiler room or professional DJ.
Yeah.
It's just like in the late 2000s to 2010s, there was a bunch of, we were all on turntables in Serato.
Staring at the laptop.
Yeah, but there was a shift where EDM DJs were requesting CDJs.
Right.
So there was this kind of like this imbalance of, well, the hip hop DJs use turntables.
Yeah.
But I want to be seen as like a big EDM DJ.
Right.
So I'm gonna use CDJs.
Yeah.
And so like when I would see like a DJ 5 or a Vice switch over to CDJs, it was like they didn't even really want a DJ on CDJs.
Yeah.
They just wanted to have the optics of like, oh, I'm as big as like an EDM DJ.
Yeah.
So we're on CDJs.
I think there's something else at play as well.
So for me, when I see the younger DJs on USB sticks, I think they're like, yo, I want to be like the bigger boiler room DJs.
Yeah.
I don't want to be looking at a laptop.
Right.
You know, like and honestly, when I see DJs, there's nothing worse than a DJ looking at a laptop. Right now, when I see like recap videos or photos of me DJing, and it's always me on the laptop, right? It's always me looking at this fucking screen, and I'm like, I get why motherfuckers switch over.
It's the same. Like
it looks better though. It looks better. It looks better.
I think there's something. I think there's something else at play though. To be honest,
nah, it looks bad when you just like looking at it's like you doing your taxes and shit. You know,
because everybody looks at a computer and they think that they have a computer that I can possibly do that.
Yeah.
The USB kind of gives it a little mystery of like, oh, he's really doing something. Like, if you see somebody twiddling on the mixer, you're not actually controlling it.
Yeah, with the USB, like, you're still pressing the quantize button and you're not doing shit. Like, but I think that there's something else at play which I've noticed recently. There's this myth that like, oh, USB DJs are more like real DJs. They're not laptop DJs. Oh, and wow. I feel like what it's come from is USB DJs overheard vinyl DJs making fun of laptop DJs and thought that they were exempt from that. And didn't realize, no, like you're a part of what vinyl DJs are making fun of. But they heard, laptop DJs aren't real. And they thought that they were
really
not. Yeah, I think that's what's happened.
I haven't heard that.
Because I've played a few clubs recently, even Jeans, they were like, we have a no laptop rule.
They have a no laptop rule?
Yeah, we had to fight.
I think seeing a DJ look at a laptop is not sexy. I feel like it's really, I can see a club owner being like, that is probably the most unsexy thing is seeing a DJ looking at a laptop. And, there's something very clean and optically pleasing about seeing an attractive DJ, just kind of just DJing without having to look at a laptop.
I could get that. I could get that.
I think it's all optics in the end. Because even even in nightclubs, like as I was DJing more and more like in big rooms and stuff.
Yeah.
I used to have my laptop in the middle.
Right.
It was just the quickest way to move.
Yeah.
Then there was we're banning all laptops in the middle because you can't see the DJ.
Yeah.
And then it became on the side.
Yeah.
And then before that, if you're taking pictures and you're doing recap videos, you don't want to see a DJ
just on
the laptop.
Yeah.
So I think optically, I think it's a big problem.
I get that.
Right now, they don't want to see that.
Yeah.
And I think the young kids know that. Like, I think the younger DJs know that shit. Like, it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
And
you think it's on its way out?
I think, well, what do you mean?
Like, just the concept of Serato and using a laptop. You think it's either going to go, because what I think it's going, it's splitting. Either it's kind of like, if you're into turntables, you're going to be playing records again, or you're going to be in USBs. And I feel like Serato might go the way of the mini disc.
Serato might go the way of the mini disc.
Wow, that's a hot take. That's a hot take.
Well, you upset about it. What is it? What upsets you about it?
I just think that's some snob shit. I believe it's some snob shit.
Yeah, but Nightlife has always been on some snob shit.
Yeah.
No, but it's moving at a pace now where it's almost to a point where, like, for so long, a lot of these spots didn't give a fuck about their equipment. They didn't give a fuck about the presentation of all this other stuff. And now all of a sudden you're dictating, and you don't actually know how to DJ. You don't actually know how to present the music.
Yeah.
But you're telling me I can't use whatever tools that I need to make this thing happen, and you're not providing.
Well, the thing is, every venue, every promoter, every party, every theme party has to create content.
Yeah.
And the content and what's sexy, they want attractive people. They want people having a great time. They also want the DJ to look cool, and a DJ typing in a laptop, looking at a screen doesn't look cool.
I get that.
And it's I'm telling you, it's 100% the fucking optics.
Yeah.
It's you know what I mean? Like, I completely understand it. It's just, for me, I think most DJs are more effective on Serato, and if they can move a lot of the features that are available in Serato, like we spoke about this with Cash, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, the benefits of Serato is being able to see 4 different windows in one screen.
Yeah.
You see all your crates, right? You see all your sub crates, and you see your prepare window, and you see all the songs in the crate. Literally, on even on a CDJ 3000, you're stuck on one window, one page, next.
The only way to do it, and this is how I've found that I've been able to transition to be able to do everything on USBs that I would do on Serato is just meticulous preparation.
That's what it is.
Like every cue point, every loop point, like really condensing playlists into smaller playlists. You know, like really like that kind of like, you know, but I feel like if you grew up playing vinyl, you understand this concept of like really knowing your songs, right? So I have this now when people are like, how do you know your BPMs? And I'm like, it's like, I don't even know the BPMs. I just know this goes with this because it's like muscle memory. So the way I approach my sets on USBs is like, I know, like I have it locked in, you know, like I know exactly where everything is and exactly, you know, like, and I think that's the key to be able to move quickly on it.
So you think I have to go on USBs is what you're saying?
I think, you know what, I think we all as DJs need to be flexible. I think it's good to have like be USB ready. It's just like, yo, you got to know how to work a controller. You got to know how to do everything. Like it. Look,
I think if you're
what it comes down to.
If you're at a point where I'm like, I can't play that venue because they don't have X, Y, and Z, I think you have a problem as a DJ. I think you need to be able to. What have you got? All right, cool. I can make that work. You know, like I play. You know, I try and do more USBs, but then. Like when I was playing Lovers Rock before they closed, they have a Rev 7 set up. I can't play USBs on that. I need to bring my laptop. It's fine, I can do it. So for me, it's like, I just wanted to be in a position where it's like, I don't even need to stress about what equipment you have or what your setup is. I am like more than like prepared and adaptable to whatever it is, you know?
I think there's also something interesting about the concept, you know. I think it was important to be able to read a room and please everybody. And I don't think that's a necessary feature in DJing right now. You know, like we were speaking about this with Cash about open format, and being proficient in all these genres. There's something about just being like, yo, nah, like I specialize in this and this is what I do. And this isn't the party for you if you want some. And you know,
I think we should go back to that, man. I'm really happy to see things, and I guess this is what I was trying to say with even how we started Living Proof. Like when I was coming out here and I was seeing that, like, you know, Rich was doing something entirely different at APT than what I would hear at Limelight or wherever. Like, that's not to say either one is better or worse, but like I love that era where it's like you went to see a DJ because you knew he was going to do a specific thing. Now I go and see DJs and it's like you're all going to play the same 20 records. Like all of you, just in a slightly different order, in a different way. Like I would love to know if you guys have like an answer to this, because I remember coming up, there were songs I wouldn't play, even if they were popular. Just like, I'm not going to play that. I know every other DJ is going to play it. I don't like that song. I'm not going to play it. I don't think that exists anymore. Because I feel like everyone goes, well, these are the 20 hottest songs. I need to play this. Do you see what I'm saying? And I feel like, let's get back to that place where DJs are like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm still going to be able to function and play enough things around that will still make everybody happy.
And it doesn't really matter at the end of the night.
Right. But it like, my integrity is telling me I don't want to play that record.
Well, we just went through that.
Did you ever have a song where you were like, I'm not playing that?
I had a song 2 days ago that I stick to that I don't play because I don't care for the song.
What is it?
I would rather not say it in 2025.
I'm gonna ask you.
It's Mendrick Hamar.
It's not the artist, but it's not like us.
It's not like us. It's the song.
I get it.
But I feel like that's one of the few like West Coast Cali songs that ring the fuck off in Brooklyn. You know? Are you running a lot of the like the squabble ups and the TV offs?
I'll play those songs. But I fully respect not playing it. I think it's important to like. It's not like if you're playing with 3 other DJs on a lineup, someone's gonna play it.
Go ahead.
You know.
Go ahead.
Yeah, someone's gonna play it. I think it's a mark of a good DJ to be like, this hottest song that's out right now, I'm not gonna play it, and I'm still gonna rock this party, and I'm still gonna turn it over. I think I think more DJs should because it's what gives you your like nobody goes to a club and goes home and goes, wow, that DJ played Drake, and then he played Cardi B, and then he played Sexy Red. Because every DJ does that. Like I want to come home from a party and be like, all right, whoa, he played this, and I didn't even hear this, but he still turned the club over. Like that to me is more memorable than just, oh, great, this DJ played every song that I've heard every other DJ play this week. You know, like nobody's walking away from that, like remembering it.
Are you DJing any specific parties or venues or rooms where you're able to like incorporate your production? Because you have a very, like we spoke about it briefly, but you have a very like kind of house dance like production sound, right?
Well, it's funny because I also do.
You do hip hop. I know.
Straight
gutter ass underground hip hop. Yeah.
You know, like I could produce a Conway record right now,
right?
And that would sound very current to what they're doing. You know, like that's still my favorite style of music to do. I was just making more up-tempo stuff, and it just kind of stuck. And I got Defected that picked up a song that I put out, which is like a big house label in the UK. So, you know, people began to know me for that, but it's still not my primary focus with the music that I make.
It's almost like Ellie, right? Ellie Escobar.
Right.
Like how he's a hip hop head to the fullest.
100%.
And but he's known for his underground house and his remixes.
Right.
His dance. And you know, he would do certain sets and he would like kind of do a 90s set and everyone would be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. And I really don't want to get I really don't want to get into that where I'm getting booked to do just house stuff. I hate the house world in New York.
Really? How so?
I mean, all right, let me be clear on that.
Yeah.
I love the OG house world. I love the
which would be what?
Louis Vega.
Right.
You know, like the classic soulful like New York house. I love that. This new scene of like, I just find it so pretentious and so snobby, and just like there's a weird undercurrent to it. And this is not to knock the DJs.
Yeah.
But there's I'm not gonna mention the name of the club. And I went to see Theo Parrish play. I'm a big Theo Parrish fan. I really like house DJs who are really open format. You know, you're gonna hear everything.
Right.
You know, like I don't know if you ever seen like Moody Man, or like he'll go from Biggie to some disco shit to some crazy Detroit techno. Like I like DJs who can really go all over the place. So I feel like there's a lot of overcompensating in that world. So you get to the club, right? And I'm going to see a black Detroit DJ. The entire security is black. The woman, when I walk into the club, who gives the entire speech about, you know, this is a safe space. There's no homophobia, no transphobia, no racism. It's
inclusive, right?
Very inclusive, right? Black woman. I walk in the club. The entire club is white guys in Carhartt beanies, right? So I look at it and I'm like, you've created this scene where you're overcompensating for how progressive and diverse you are, but nobody that comes to your club is diverse. Like you have got the most like undiverse environment, and I feel like it's because DJs are so self-important, right? That we tick all these boxes of who's going to be in the box, and these same clubs don't actually give a shit about the audience that feel comfortable coming to these parties and these venues.
Interesting.
And that to me sums up the house movement in Brooklyn. Like there's all these conversations about the origins of house and where house started. I'm like, the only people who feel safe to come to these environments or feel comfortable in these environments are like white transplants from middle America. So how diverse is this environment that you're really trying to create?
So you're saying there's like a hypocrisy and there's a pandering.
100%.
Of
100%. You got these venues that are like, we've got a non-binary, one-legged trans Indonesian DJ playing tonight. Cool, but you're just playing to a bunch of white kids. So it's like,
why
you know?
Why do you hate white people so much?
No. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. Please listen, internet, don't count.
Jesus
I'm just
Christ,
kidding.
that was fucking hilarious.
I don't hate anybody.
Let's dig into that.
I hate.
Tell us why.
I hate hypocrisy, and I hate like virtue signaling and pandering, and
oh Lord, it's everywhere.
Yeah, I hate it, man.
It's omnipresent everywhere.
And I think, do you know what it is? I come from a place where it's very class-based, right? And I grew up working class.
Yeah.
Right. So I find a lot of these movements are very anti-working class and anti-poor, right? So you can posture as being, oh, you know, I'm trying to be very careful. I don't want to get myself cancelled. You can posture as being, oh, you know, we're pro-gay, we're pro-black, we're pro-trans, we're pro all of these things, but there's an underlying current of you actually being very uninclusive with poorer people or people that you see as being undesirable. So you can go to these parties in Bushwick and it's like, oh, we're very inclusive of black people, but not black people from the projects, you know, or we're very inclusive of gay people, but it's like only a specific type of gay people that make you feel comfortable.
Oh, wow.
You know, like, so do you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's very much like, oh, look, we bring all these people together, but you're still bringing...
It's like a dog and pony show. So it's like you're kind of putting on, but you're not really putting on.
Right. There's still a very, like, it's a middle to upper class level of diversity that you want to embrace. And I feel like a lot of the, you know, the current progressive movement is that. It's like you're not really for the actual people, you know? Mm-hmm. You want to pat yourself on the back and feel like you're being, you know, inclusive and progressive, but you're still uncomfortable around the communities that you say that you want to embrace.
Right.
If you're really around that community. You see what I'm saying?
No.
Like, and that to me, there's a lot of that with that Brooklyn dance music scene, which just, I don't want to.
But it's kind of like the evolution of what New York is right now, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it? I mean, if you look at it and you see the prices for rent, you know, inflation and everything,
100%.
It's kind of like, how organically can you be a Brooklyn dance party?
Right.
When you have $4,000 rent for a 2-bedroom.
Right.
Right?
Right. If you're lucky. If you're lucky.
Right.
You know? Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, look, I'm very aware that I'm not from here. Mm-hmm. And I'm, you know, I live in Brooklyn. I'm part of the problem. You know, I don't pay much different than what you just said. You know,
transplant hating on transplants, yo.
You know, and and it's not about hating on transplants. It's not about, you know, hating on white people. It's not about any of this. It's just about
it's an observation.
It's an observation, and it's a lack of self-awareness. Like, understand who you are in the conversation. Mm-hmm. And understand how you can be a part of the problem, or you can try and be a part of the solution.
But the question is are they not allowing people in? No,
you're just creating an environment
where people won't be welcome,
but where people are not going to feel comfortable.
Really,
you know,
interesting.
Which to me, I don't know. You know, maybe I'm wrong. That's my observation, having been in some of those spaces.
Did you notice some of these changes happening in London?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Like, when did you start seeing these changes in the London nightlife scene?
I feel like London really changed around 2012 when the Olympics happened. There was a huge, because a lot of, basically East London is Brooklyn, in a sense that everything left the West End, where, because, you know, racist door policies and, you know, bottle service and all of that kind of shit. So a lot of underground parties started popping up in East London, and we were one of the first. Shout out to Work It. They were another party, and Benji B's party was another one. Deviation was the name of it. So a lot of these parties started popping up in East London. And then East London, it kind of became like Brooklyn in the sense that it used to be, you know, these are neighborhoods that used to be undesirable, you know, and now very gentrified. But the Olympics was hosted in Stratford, which is in the heart of East London. So I feel like in 2012, there was like a sped up like approach to gentrification, where they were like, oh shit, we're going to have people from all over the world.
So we got to do what we got to do.
We got to get these people out, you know.
And it was like expedited.
Yeah. Wow. And, you know, suddenly people who wouldn't...
And it was for a lack of space, kind of, right?
A lack of space, and just like, man, the
opportunity.
Olympics was in Stratford. Like, people still get shot in Stratford. Like, you know, they don't want tourists staying there, and that's what they're seeing of London.
So that was a changing point.
That was a changing point. And then you suddenly get people who are going to these parties in Dalston and Hackney that you're looking at thinking, you would not have felt safe here 2 years ago. you know.
Right.
And
did you start noticing like the change at Living Proof at your parties?
Not so much. I feel like we always had a really good mix of people.
Yeah.
I feel like we had a very like inclusive party in a sense that I don't feel like anybody felt uncomfortable coming to Living Proof. It was a mixture of like cool kids, fashion kids, hood
just
kids.
Soldier Boy. Just Soldier Boy.
There's no Soldier Boy. But you know, like it was definitely yeah, everybody came.
Gold, you're still hurt about the Soldier Boy.
Well,
this thing. Yeah, but it is interesting though how Soldier Boy is probably it's like a hip hop classic now.
Yeah.
Where you almost have to like play it in a night.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the few times you're gonna get a diverse room to dance together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like the Macarena.
And
you know?
and it was never a problem with the Macarena. It was never a problem when you had the Pee Wee Herman back in the days. It's like it was a hip hop dance. This kid made up a hip hop dance.
Yeah.
You feel me?
Did you play what was it called that came out a few years ago?
The Dougie?
Old Town Road.
Old Town Road, I had to play Old Town Road.
See, I see.
Did you play the remix?
Yeah, I played the remix
Billy
as
Ray
well.
Cyrus.
Yeah,
See, I see Soldier Boy as that was the Old Town Road of that time. In a sense that there was a debate, like, is it kids' music? Is it going to get played in the club? And like, I felt like that people sat on different sides of the fence.
To tell you the absolute truth, just in all honesty, I thought Old Town Road was pretty hard. Pause. Just, I mean, the sample,
right?
Where they got that shit from, it was like, I thought that was a really good record, to tell you the absolute truth.
I think it's a combination of a bunch of New York kids going to fuck off on a non-New York artist during the tail end of a crazy, incredible New York run.
Yeah.
And not even the tail end. That was during.
Well, it was
It was during, bro. I mean, you talk about 2005, you have G-Unit.
Soldier Boy was 07 though.
No. It was 07, but I'm just saying, if you have 2003, 2005, you have the biggest rappers introducing the next wave of biggest rappers. So you got Nicki Minaj is coming out around about that time. You got Drake coming out around about that time. 2003, 2005 for New York, 50, G-Unit,
yeah,
Jay-Z,
but that's what I'm saying. 2007, it was kind of like
Dipset.
Yeah.
What was the tail end of 50 Cent's reign?
2008, 2009.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd say 2007 because it's when he went
Kanye.
He went against Kanye.
Yeah, but he was still hot.
Yeah.
So the interesting part of this is that during the tail end of 50 Cent's run, he started making these like smile records.
Yeah.
And then we started calling him Ja Rule.
Yeah.
So like we were almost like, wow, 50 Cent took out Ja Rule only to become the next Ja Rule.
Yeah.
Nah, I got to push back on that.
We were kind of saying that. It was he was making a lot of these like singy songs, and we were like, it was very Ja Rule-ish, and it was women.
I push back on that.
Okay,
I push back on that.
Okay, but motherfuckers was saying that to a certain degree.
Push back. I think that a lot of things were said about 50 because 50 was on top, and a lot of people were hating, and that's just what it was.
I bring this up.
He was a target.
Yeah.
And he was the topic because everybody changed their style after 50 came out. Everybody was extra crispy hard.
Yeah, but these songs weren't hitting.
And but my point is this. He had sold so much and he did 2 albums that were practically diamond.
For sure.
Everybody followed 50. Look, I'm going to say this and I'm going to say this once and you can make this a clip or whatever you want to do. Mm-hmm. 50 did not start the beefing in New York. He had his own beef. 2001, Nas and Jay-Z was going at it. 2001, Dipset and kind of Rockefeller was going at it.
Right.
2002,
and Dipset and Nas as well.
I mean, you had D-Block going. Everybody was going for the crown after Biggie died. Everybody was beefing. 50 wasn't even in the game until 2003. He didn't come out. He didn't have a reason to have anybody really fuck with him until 2003. Mm-hmm. So for people to say that he started it, the beef in New York is bullshit.
We're talking about the fact when like Ja Rule and Fat Joe started making New York, right?
Yeah. That's
like,
2007.
Right. So they started making these records together, and Ja Rule was kind of coming back with Clapback and all this, right? And then during this time, it was like whoever was Ja Rule aligned was an enemy.
Yeah.
And then, but everyone started becoming Ja Rule aligned to a certain degree.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, that's when it was like, oh shit, we can't really make songs with Fat Joe now because Fat Joe made a song with Ja Rule, and 50's gonna go at everybody.
You know what this is?
But it's almost like they blame 50 for creating this thing where like New Yorkers can't work together no more. Like these New York rappers can't work together no more.
And it's so similar to right now, and I'm just gonna say it. It's similar to the narrative of people saying, "Oh well, Drake, he was working with everybody and nobody fucked with him, and now nobody wants to work with him. He's the problem."
Yeah.
It's the same narrative.
Yeah, you need the guy on top is the boogeyman, and then
that's all it became.
But 50 definitely played the role of being a boogeyman more so than Drake,
because he benefited from it because he didn't get put on by anybody from New York, so he could care fucking less. But the fact of the matter is that at one point everybody loved Biggie Smalls.
Yeah.
Everybody loved Biggie Smalls. Everybody wanted to do a record with him until he got too big to the point where he became more competition than they knew they could handle. Then everybody turned on him.
Same with Jay.
Same thing happened with Jay. Same thing happened with 50.
Yeah.
Same thing happened with Drake.
So I have a question for you, being that you were very active in New York in the 2000s, because the Ja Rule shit gets rewritten. When 50 really popped, everyone was like, nah, Ja was always whack. Ja was always whack. Nobody liked Ja. So I was never a big Ja fan. I liked Ja's first album. You know the one with like murder on it? Like, I love that album.
Vinny Village.
Right. After that, I played Ja records because they were huge. It was whatever. But how big was Ja in the clubs here from like 2000 to 2002 before 50 really came through?
Huge.
Was he big in the clubs, or was he big on the radio, and did it translate to the clubs in the same way?
I'll tell you this. Ja Rule sold more records than Jay-Z.
Right.
Period.
But did that translate to the clubs?
Yeah.
No, it totally translated to the clubs.
Okay.
And not only that, when Murder Inc. started going to like Ashanti and Jennifer Lopez, it was just
undeniable.
It was undeniable. It was like we were playing 8 different records with Ja Rule that was Ja Rule Murder Inc. aligned.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And you know the reason I say it? Because there's club records that were probably just as big that didn't sell anything. And that's why I say that the club
now, what records were you
like something to? like I remember coming to New York when Special Delivery came out. Right. That record was huge.
Yeah.
Probably one of the biggest club records.
Right.
Probably equally as big as whatever Ja record was out right then. But obviously Special Delivery was not selling the same amount.
But it was a different approach. And of course, Ja Rule's records had a bigger sound to it, and a machine more, that was a little bit more prevalent.
But I mean that just there were just records that were huge club smashes that weren't necessarily big outside of the club in that sense. You know what I mean? Like,
that's interesting.
Like, even
I never thought about that the Special Delivery in comparison to
like that was
the same era.
That was a huge club record.
Yeah,
but I don't think I doubt it was a platinum selling song.
Nah,
the remix was crazy too.
Yeah, I love that.
We'd go. It's interesting when now that we're talking about the Murder Inc. and Irv Gotti kind of like formula.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong. Like, correct me if I'm wrong.
Go ahead.
But there was a 2000s formula that really crossed over and translated into like white bottle service rooms.
Yeah.
Which was hip hop with R&B hooks.
Yeah.
And so like a Fat Joe, What's Love?
Yeah.
And like Ja Rule with Jennifer Lopez, Ashanti.
Yeah.
These became the formula. Like, I remember that time, girls would call that hip hop.
Yeah.
They would come and they would be like, play hip hop. And I'm playing like Jay-Z. And I'm like, I am playing hip hop. They're like, no, like Fat Joe or Ja Rule, that's hip hop. And I'd be looking at them like, are you fucking crazy?
Yeah.
Well, you also have to remember that this is the MTV 106 and Park era.
Yeah.
So when they're singing hip hop, they're singing it from the videos.
Right.
And those were the popular records at the time on the videos.
But hip hop was always like, remember at this time in the 90s, there's like, yo, there's rap and there's hip hop. And hip hop is culture and rap is like.
Rap is something you do.
Rap is something you do.
Yeah.
But it was like, there was this identification of what hip hop was.
But that goes back to the snobbery.
Pop.
Yeah.
Because it was the snobbery of certain artists weren't going to put on that clean shirt and, you know, the gold chain and this, that, and the third and give you that type of shine.
But that formula,
as much as they wanted it, there was a lot of underground artists, quote unquote, that wanted that shine, that wanted that look to be on 106 in Park or MTV Jams or this, that, and the third. But they weren't willing to do what those superstar dudes were doing.
Right. So
visually.
I agree with you with the snobbery, but do you not think, I think there's a line in between just being solely about the money and being a snob. I think somewhere there's a line that people need to toe, because I agree with you. I think a lot of snobbery was at play, and I think a lot of talented artists didn't get the shot that they should have got because they were dismissed as being jiggy or they were dismissed as being too commercial.
I believe that, but I also believe that there is a self-awareness with certain artists that they're judgmental seeing somebody else doing it, but deeper down in their heart, they want it as well.
Right.
There's a lot of cats that went to EDM, a lot of DJ cats.
Yeah.
They wanted that shine that the AMs and the other guys did.
Yeah.
But they weren't willing to do or placate. You know what I mean? To get that. You feel what I'm saying?
But do you think there's not like, I agree with that, but also I do think that there are people who are just like, I'm not doing that. My integrity is stopping me from, and I think it is important to have people who are like,
at that point. But you've seen a lot of people that would have that stance, and then 10 years later, they're doing the same exact thing that they were kind of like against 10 years before.
Yeah.
Because they seen it work, or they seen the effects of where that other person went, and now all of a sudden they're doing it. You know what I'm saying?
Honestly, that crowd to me, nothing epitomizes that crowd than the late 90s backpack crowd that turned jiggy. They're the worst. The worst people.
What do you mean?
Because they're the people who are the most like, you listen to underground rap, and it's like you're overcompensating for the fact that you were never outside. You just sat in your room listening to.
That's where that's where the real snobbery started.
And now it's like they're overcompensating and going way the other way and be like, nah, I only listen to Nelly. And it's like, bro, you were listening to nothing but MF Doom in '98. Like, stop it. You know.
What is your beef with Nelly?
I have no beef with I realized
what happened with you and Nelly?
I realized that was a segue into this.
No, what happened?
I don't have a beef with Nelly.
I've heard. I know you don't have a beef with Nelly. But there's been.
I have a beef with idiots on Twitter.
There's all this talk. There's this folklore about Snips and going into Twitter beef about Nelly, and was it the verses?
It was during the verses. I'll tell you what happened, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, we're all DJs. I'm sure all of us were playing Nelly records in the early 2000s.
You had to. Yeah.
You had to, right? So there's two conversations around artists like Nelly, right? Are we talking about, did they have club hits? Yeah, absolutely. Are you talking about Nelly when you're talking about MCs in the early 2000s? Absolutely not, you know? So when the Luda and Nelly verses happened, anybody who knows or understands or cares about rap as an art form, Luda is a superior MC to Nelly, right? That's not to say Nelly didn't make club records or whatever, but like, so I was basically seeing people talking about it, people my age who know better, right? Oh, yo, man, I don't know about like, Nelly might take him, blah, blah. And I was like, my tweet was verbatim, I said, are you, man, really pretending that you were Nelly fans like that? Right? Because again, as DJs, sure, we played Nelly records. When we were having those conversations about rappers in the early 2000s, and you're talking about Jada and Lloyd Banks and Fab and, you know, Nas, and like nobody's putting Nelly in that conversation. You're putting Beanie in that conversation. Like, you know, like it's not. So anyway, I said that, and you know who, because people started retweeting it, and this was a very volatile time as well. Everybody was in the house.
Right.
We were mid-pandemic.
Right.
You know, socially a lot had happened. George Floyd, the protests, everything. Like, it was just not a time for a white dude to be talking
about black music.
About black music.
I mean, this is the time when every white DJ had to tweet, I support BLM. I play black music, and I'm a white DJ.
Right.
Wow.
Like
I had a theory on why people came for me over this. Right.
Yeah. But what was do you remember verbatim what you tweeted? Like, what was
literally what I said? I said, are you man really pretending that you were fans of Nelly?
Okay.
That was it.
Right. That was it?
That was it. That's all I tweeted.
Okay. Sounds kind of snobbish.
Yeah, a little bit.
No, just joking.
But here's the thing, right?
You didn't talk about Soulja Boy, though.
Here's the thing, right? With the situation, call me a snob, call me a dickhead, call me opinionated, all of those things.
It doesn't
but you did it while the verses was going on?
I did it as people were talking about the verses.
Oh, okay.
So, but it doesn't sound that crazy.
It's not crazy. And I feel like if you're in your 40s, like,
we're in a different world.
We weren't talking about Nelly.
Because it's almost like, it's not exactly, but it's almost like saying like, you're a fan of Flow Rider. Like, who's actually a fan of Flow Rider?
Right.
Like, I mean, he's great.
We all played his records, but
he made a ton of great music.
Right.
But there's no like real rap head saying, yo, Flow Rider.
And that's my thing. You know, we've seen these verses, we've seen they're putting like, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously this was before the Locks and Dipset, but like, you know, that was the whole point with these verses. It's like you're seeing it was for us, it's for the heads, like, oh shit, they're putting, and I'm like, Nelly, how's Nelly in this, you know?
Yeah, but I get the comparison because they were both around at the same time.
So what were people upset about, though?
Yeah, but what was the response?
What was the upset?
So what happened was,
who the fuck was canceling you?
When I tell you who retweeted it and said something which really just, I'll get to that. So at first people are like, oh, why does Snips think he has the right to talk about black culture, blah, blah, blah.
And these are people who don't know you.
No, these are people that know me and don't like me, right?
Oh.
This is how it started. Like, and then people just started making jokes off the back of it. Like, I saw one girl say, we need to start asking, has Snips ever put money in black people's pockets, right, with Living Proof?
Oh,
I looked at her post and I'm like, you literally did my door at Living Proof. I've literally put money in your pocket. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Wow. So people were kind of just running with this narrative or whatever. I get it. Is what it is. People were cracking their jokes, and some of the jokes were funny as fuck. Someone called me Snow Budden, which I thought was the funniest shit.
That is pretty funny.
Fucking hilarious. And this is the thing, man. I hold the jokes. You can make fun of me. I'm not sensitive like that. Yeah. But when you really go for my character, it got so crazy, right?
Snow Budden is kind of
really is hilarious. Hilarious. But it got to the point where people then, I got like 400 DMs. Yeah. From people like, oh, if I see you outside, blah, blah, blah. It got to the point where people went to my Instagram, right? Trolled my Instagram, found out that my wife is black, and then started commenting on her shit. To the point where my wife isn't on Twitter. She doesn't care about social media. I'm in the other room. She comes in and was like, yo, what the fuck did you say? Why are people telling me I'm married to a racist? And like, for her, she doesn't understand Twitter. So she's just like, she couldn't believe it. She's like, what did you say? Like, when I showed her, she was like, no, this can't be the reason people are messaging me. And I'm like, this is Twitter. But the reason it went
this is Twitter in 2020.
Right. The reason it went so crazy, and it's crazy because he's such a point of conversation. Tariq Nasheed saw the tweet somehow, and he reposted it. And then it just went mad after that. Like, the abuse went crazy. Yeah.
Shit. Who exactly is Tariq Nasheed?
Tariq Nasheed is like, he's a documentarian. He's an activist to a degree. And he's actually the progenitor of the whole FBA type of situation where he questions the validity of people claiming hip-hop as not an black African art form for the most part.
Oh, like, okay. Is it almost like, is it parallel to the ADOS?
Yes.
The African descendants of slaves.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the conversation of black immigrants versus black Americans, right?
No, it's not. It's just,
it's not?
It's really the conversation of lineage to the culture, the hip hop culture.
But is his argument that like Afrika Bambaataa and like Grandmaster Flash and Kool Herc did not create hip hop because they're like from Caribbean descent?
Right, but basically his argument is saying that it predates them.
Exactly.
That's what he's saying.
He's saying that
he's basically saying it predates them, but it was predated by African Americans, not Caribbean Americans, but the actual people that were here.
Right.
Foundational black Americans.
Yeah. Saying that they got the credit, but there's actual like
documentation and
actual black Americans
exactly.
who weren't West Indian or from
exactly
or Caribbean
or any other race, just black.
But that's kind of like black Americans against black immigrants.
No,
a little bit.
It's not. It's just claiming if you're if that's the fact, then it's not against anything. It's just ownership.
One of the beauties of hip hop, right, is that in an era when, you know, Black Americans, Latinos were, you know, in these inner cities, and they didn't have the musical education to play instruments.
Yeah.
There wasn't this, like, you know, they took what they could and they created this music, and they sampled from anything. I think the most beautiful thing about hip hop is anything can become hip hop.
Yeah.
I could take salsa.
Yeah.
If there's a breakbeat in salsa, it can become rap. It can become hip hop.
And I think,
you know,
that's what the I think that's the point of the conversation that gets missed, right? Is that if you're looking at this as a cake, right?
Yeah.
You could say, you know, Black American culture is the flour. You take that out, you don't have a cake, right?
Yeah.
But then this cake that is now exists, you got to put egg in there, you got to put sugar in there, you got to put all these other things to make this what it is today. So I think when people try and dismiss the Black American foundation of hip hop, I think it's disrespectful to dismiss that. But at the same time, I think if you remove West Indian influence, if you remove Puerto Rican influence, what we now have today doesn't look the same as what it is. Mm-hmm. So you can't discredit the other elements that because otherwise there's a very specific reason this culture became what it was in New York City and not in another city. And I think the diversity in these neighborhoods plays such a part in why it became what it is. You know?
I also think the biggest problem with a lot of Black music and a lot of Black contributions to America is that Black communities and Black people weren't able to benefit
100%.
from any of the monetization from it, from any of the revenue it generated.
Right.
So at the very least, they should be credited for the origin of it.
Well, what I will say is this, and you know, the analogy of the baking a cake is great, but you also have to remember that hip hop is unique because it's not from the ground up type of situation.
Right.
There is source material that created hip hop. Yeah. So whereas you're saying bake a cake, this is a cake that we already kind of took a slice of R&B. We took a slice of gospel. We took a slice of, you know, the blues.
Yeah.
We took a slice of this and we added the hip hop flavor to make a different kind of cake.
Yeah.
So these places, like if it was hip hop and it was the source material was from Spain or from a Latin place, the source material would have originally been what we were using.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The source material that we're using is Black music.
Right.
So it's integrally Black because this is where birthed from.
Right.
We're using this as a source of material.
Yeah.
So as to diminish or to undermine the fact that the music origins that we used as our source material was Black music.
But
you know
I don't think anyone was.
No, I think that's
really?
the actual point.
But I don't think anyone was arguing that, you know, hip hop stems from Black music and it's, you know, and it's cultivated by Black Americans. I just think hip hop, the way it evolved, had allies, and there was Puerto Ricans that were a part of that, and you know,
I believe that we had allies,
and there was Caribbeans, like even the concept of like the DJ and like a rapper, it stems from, you know, reggae and dancehall roots and Jamaican music.
It's debatable.
I would also say that even
it is debatable, but you know,
it's debatable.
Yeah.
But I think I truly believe that the fact that you have a cake, the fact that you had a cake and where the cake came from, says a lot to when you have a person talking about, oh, it was 50-50 and we kind of did it together.
I don't believe
no one said it was that though.
No, they have said,
I think that's a stretch to suggest it was 50-50. I think to suggest it was solely one thing, I think is dismissive of the other elements that were a part of its creation. But I think to suggest 50-50 is I think historically speaking, we can see it's fairly evident that this is Black American at its
I also believe that there's a lot of
core,
other factors, and it's social, economic factors, there's political factors, there's cultural factors that go along besides the movie, besides the music that makes the thing of hip hop. So, you have mixes and influences, stuff like that, but they pale in comparison to where the source material comes from.
But would you not say that, and again, look, I'm asking, I am not pretending to be, I would consider myself a student of this, but like a student is somebody who learns by consuming information rather than living it. I wasn't there, I can't, But when I think of like the source material for what we consider to be the most the break beats that we use, I look at it and I look at that as being some of the most diverse music.
It is.
And that to me is what makes hip hop, like, you think of, you got James Brown breaks, but then you got Kraftwerk, and then you've got Michael Viner, and then you've got
But that's much later though. But that's much later.
It's like 73, right?
Yeah, I mean, we were using James Brown at 60 something. You know what I mean?
Right,
so it's much later as we add stuff to the pot. Right. Yeah, we get it. But the basis of the stuff is actually the people that we had, the artists of our parents' collection. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it wasn't Michael Viner in our moms and pops collection.
Right.
That's something that we had to go in.
And we're digging up as you're trying to find obscure shit. And
exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I get that. I think, you know what? I think as well, and I'll use the drill scene as a comparison to this, right? Because when a lot of people talk about reggae culture and hip hop culture, and they're like, they took from this and they took from this. And I think what's also quite likely is that people who've had a similar experience and a similar history can create similar things on their own without even realizing. And I say that to say, if you look at the drill scene in Brooklyn and the drill scene in London, right, sounds really similar. And there's this debate of who took who from what and whatever. And it's like, actually, you're looking at first, second generation Caribbean kids living in very similar environments, in very similar cities, with very similar influences, who have got to this place just really similar. And it's like, I don't think either stole from either in that sense. I think you've just got two groups of people existing in two different places who've had very, very similar backgrounds and very similar influences and have both got to a similar place at the same time. So when you look at dancehall culture and you look at hip hop culture, I don't think it's necessarily a case of like, they took from this or they took from this. It's like, you've got these two communities of people in different places who literally are going through similar things socially and have come to this kind of place at the same time where they've created these two things that are kind of similar, Even when I look at like London culture, you look at that downtown culture in New York where, you had the punk world and the CBGB's world, and then you had the hip hop world, and then there became this weird kind of mishmash of cultures. And then you look at what was happening in London at the same time, and you get groups like The Clash that came from this mishmash of like white working class culture mixing with reggae culture and sound system, and you get this hybrid, and it's like there's so many things going on in the world at once, and you're bound to get different communities of people kind of reaching similar places at the same time based on like a shared experience, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. I'm not sure if I actually agree as far as with the hip hop,
right? Because
it predates all that stuff, so it was already kind of like moving in a certain type of rebel type of direction.
Well, like I asked you, like, what are the from what you know, what are the first instances of hip hop that you would say?
I would say is a lot of things that I believe that contributed to hip hop. I believe that the Black poets. I believe that the Black Power movement. I believe the fact that people had family in the South. The fact that, you're from New York, but you went down south for the summer and you spoke to your cousins and they let you know this is that. You went to the West Coast. You went there and you traded music, or you found out what was popping, whatever like that. So that back and forth of music, a shared experience, whatever. The fact that it's unique to New York is because of, the scene of the schools where they took out the instruments and they made it uniquely us with the tools that we use, the turntables, because they took out the instruments. You know what I mean? But the shared fact across the country to where it was a movement because we all had the commonality of our race. That's how we got down. Bebop. Those are our fathers. Those are our uncles. Those are the people, our parents. And some, this is our record collection. The sample sources of us using jazz or us using these break beats and stuff of that nature. Those are our parents that we're getting it from. You know what I mean? This is in our home. That's making it, I guess, really importantly and more importantly, a black thing. No disrespect, but I'm just saying that's
no, of course.
How
when we look back at the pioneers of hip hop, we look at the three, Grandmaster Flash, Kool Herc, and Afrika Bambaataa,
right?
Who all have West Indian Caribbean roots,
right?
And then, so you're saying this transcends them way before?
Yes, I will say that, and respectfully, I will say that.
Okay, and then kind of specifically, or maybe ballpark figure. And what were
the way I explain it is that we had people that were already on radio. You had Jocko, you had Hank Spann, you had a culture of the rhythm and rhyme of people saying stuff like that on the radio that these guys actually listened to. WWRL. You had Bob Law and was Gary Bird. So you have examples of people doing the art form in our way before these guys even touched records.
But is that not just the rap side of the art form, or would you say that is the whole entirety of?
I'm not just making it to whereas or minimizing it to just the rap side because it is a culture. Hip hop is a culture. So at the same time, you have the graffiti, which came out of the gang culture.
Yeah,
you have. The music that we were getting the sample source from, the Curtis Mayfields, the James Browns, all of that stuff was politically influenced.
Yeah.
That was what we were being told. You have the Muhammad Alis that were rhyming at the time, before that predates hip hop. You have the Isaac Hayes and all these guys that were doing raps on their records way before these guys came into prominence or said that they started doing this stuff. And remember, they're getting the source material from these places. So it's very hard for you to give them the credit that they created it when you're getting the source from somewhere else that predates you. You understand? Respectfully.
No, I get what you mean. I guess people see them as the pioneers because they were...
Oh, no. They are pioneers. Yeah. Pioneers is different than saying creators. And let's just get that
right.
Let's get that totally clear.
Because they were the faces of the parties and the functions, right?
They were some of the faces of the party. So let's let's be.
This is a deep conversation, though.
No, it totally is, and and I'm glad it came up. And it's as respect.
It's one where I'm so glad I'm not on Twitter because Jesus.
No, just respectfully. This conversation is an ongoing conversation.
Yeah.
And it's nuanced because it deals with how people see things now and how things actually were in the past, and a lot of people weren't around for that. Definitely. A lot of people weren't involved with that, and a lot of people take for granted how we live now as to be fact last time. You know what I mean? So it's very nuanced. It's very nuanced.
I think it's a sensitive conversation too, because I think if there's any two communities in the world who have created such an amount of culture that is, like you said, has been taken from them and never given back in a way where the community that created them has got to see that financial reward and got to see that credit, it's Black American people and Jamaican people. And I say that obviously Jamaica is such a small island with such a smaller community, like 400,000 people in America, like 20% Black Americans. So you're talking about, like 80 million people, 80 million Black Americans versus 3 million Jamaicans. So obviously the output of Black American culture is huge compared to Jamaica. But if you look at literally just like a per capita sense, the culture that Jamaica's given to the world based upon the revenue that they've seen from this culture that they've given, it's so minimal, right? So you've got two communities, and this is without me talking about the Puerto Rican community, but you've got these two communities who have continually had the rest of the world take from them and take and take and take and give nothing back.
Yeah.
And now you've got these two communities that are discussing ownership over an art form where there's this history of just continual kind of pillaging from both communities. It's like, I understand why it's such a sensitive conversation to have, you know?
And there's been no, I guess, there's been no like...
resolution?
Yeah.
Well, there's been no resolution. There's barely any accountability. And there's no reparations for anything that's happened.
I think that this conversation goes a long way just to put it to where I'm not saying I don't think people are really looking for the respect behind it, and I think that that's a problem. Because
what do you mean?
I think that if it wasn't so swept under the rug, or if it wasn't so dismissed, or if the idea of hip hop wasn't so inviting to everybody. It's one of the only art forms that we say you could be hip hop by just, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like it's no kind of birthright into it. It's like you don't have to actually.
I think also sometimes in conversations like this, I fully agree with what you just said, by the way. And I think sometimes you have this thing where when people can be part of a we rather than just a me or a you, it allows other people who who might not have necessarily contributed much to fly under the flag of a larger umbrella people that have, right? So I can understand why when somebody like Fat Joe says, I am hip hop and I'm a part of this culture, and I'm like, why he would get annoyed hearing some random guy, 20-year-old from Atlanta, be like, you don't get to say that because of your ethnicity and your, because like when you say we and here, it's like, all right, but you're talking about somebody who you can't take what Fat Joe has done for this culture away from him. And you've got some random guy who's attaching himself to a larger we,
right?
Being able to put this person down. It's like, oh, okay, but what have you personally contributed to this, you know?
Right.
And I think sometimes it becomes sticky in that sense where it's like, you know, the larger kind of identity politics, and it allows it allows people who have the least stake to have the loudest voice, you know?
And I think we're at the point, especially with social media, that you can find a person that can just project, and you don't know what the credentials of their criteria of what they've done, and they can just say stuff and it just goes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think at some point there has to be some type of checks and balances. It's like, yeah, if you were there, okay, well, where's the proof?
Yeah.
Where's the proof? And it's not saying that to anybody in particular. I'm just saying as far as the movement of basically saying this predates what they're saying.
Yeah.
Or this is predating. Because I haven't actually heard Kool Herc ever say he created hip hop.
Right.
I've never heard him say that. I've heard people say that he's created hip hop, but I've never heard Kool Herc himself say, I created hip hop.
I think it's crazy because like hip hop is such a big part of all our lives.
Yeah.
Like I would say like hip hop saved my life.
100%. It's the reason I'm sitting here.
The person that I am is completely like hip hop is ingrained in me. Like I can't turn my back on hip hop.
Yeah.
It would be like I'm turning my back on my whole history.
Yeah.
All my like childhood friends growing up. You know, my mother like raising me in New York. It's just such a part of who I am.
Right.
You know, and I think everyone has this relationship with the culture in some sort of way. Whether you're from London, right?
Right.
It's affected us in such a strong way.
Right.
And I don't think any of us deny the fact that it's black music.
No,
and
100%.
And it stems from black Americans.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where we are allies.
Yeah.
And we want to protect the culture.
Yeah.
But I think maybe there's a certain energy of like, you're not welcome.
Yeah.
We don't acknowledge your presence as a part of the storyline, which is fine.
I don't think that's what's being said.
I think that was some of the energy that was projected at Puerto Ricans.
But I don't believe that. I believe that actually it's like you have a situation where we are allies.
Yeah.
If you really want to be technical, the people that was around us were Puerto Ricans. They were our first allies. They were our first contributors.
Right.
Yeah.
But they weren't creators. They were contributors. They added on to something that was already happening.
I think, but on social media, I don't think everyone has.
But that's the problem. It's people, and this is what I mean by people with the least stake in it having the most to say it. Because I think, like, as a white man that has moved here from another country, every black American friend I have who is like rooted in this culture has never had an issue with what I believe that I am contributing to it.
Yeah.
Never had an issue with it, right? But you speak to a 19-year-old who discovered hip hop on MTV, who lives in the middle of wherever, they're going to get online and have an issue with it, because
but a lot of that is because they didn't have to give up what these guys before them had to give up.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and then you also have to remember that it was a time before them that it wasn't hip hop.
Yeah.
And to know what built it or to what added the ingredients to make it, you kind of got to be true to that. You have to be able to say, hey, this wasn't down by law. Right. This wasn't involved. But this stuff was.
Yeah.
Just the reason why I started to try to want to be down.
But it's almost like, look, it's like what we were talking about with anything. Like when the original argument is focused on Black Americans creating hip hop and it being black music, everyone with different agendas start chiming in and taking that argument to use it for whatever narrative that they want.
Yeah.
So then it becomes, this is against black immigrants.
It became a political
or this
charge,
is like anti-white. White people get out of here.
Right.
White people are stolen from, so, and Puerto Ricans were never part of hip hop, so shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Then that's what happens in social media, and that's what happens in the world right now, where one argument that's completely fixated on with one focus becomes completely blurred because of everyone taking this it's like someone taking a Bible and reinterpreting for like completely different things besides the worship of Jesus Christ.
Which is exactly what people do.
Which is what they do. Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is perspective, man. I mean, like, a lot of people, my knowledge from what I know is, Cool Herc, Flash. I'm also open to learn if somebody shows me something that conflicts that, or somebody who was there was like, actually this happened. My opinion's subject to change. Right. And I think this is the biggest problem that people have, is that you're supposed to be open to your opinion changing with new information, right? And that's why, like for me, I've been welcomed and embraced in this culture to the point where, like, I give respect to every, like, from pre-hip hop to post-hip, like, everything that's been a part of allowing this to grow to what it's grown to has my love and respect, and I wasn't in the Bronx in 1973. I was like, so everything I know is based upon.
Well, that's the thing. That's why we have to be open, because a lot of the things that we were told, a lot of it wasn't necessarily true.
A lot of it was myth. A lot of it was folklore. A lot of it was romanticized, and a lot of it is, to tell you the truth, if you really do the knowledge, a lot of the people that are speaking for the path of this stuff, they weren't there documenting it.
Right.
And you can't prove that they were actually there. Yeah. They really can't prove to you, I was actually there because I had this, I had that, I had this. So it's one of those things where it's like, when did this guy, become, you know what I mean? And it's very hard. It's one of the art forms where it's like, it doesn't have a real start date.
Right.
But you have stuff that predates when they say this is around the circa time that this started. No, it really started a little earlier.
The thing is also the other thing that makes it even harder is like with any type of like historical kind of like us trying to go back to things that weren't documented properly, is you will even find people who really were there. You can find two people who were there and experienced it and still have a different perspective on what it was.
But
and that makes it even harder to really become like a concrete,
Also, you have like, in, Egypt, and people go to excavate and they find stuff and they say, okay, well, this right here proves that this was here 6,000 years ago. Yeah. And then they have somebody that finds something else. Yeah. And they find something, but we don't throw it back at the people and say that the people in Egypt were wrong. Yeah. We just say, okay, now that we have the new information, this was here. Right. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So we have to be respectful enough to be able to say, hey, let's just go with the evidence.
They have this same conversation about grime in London. Where did grime come from? Who started it? Was it an East London thing? Was it a North London thing? Was it a South London thing or whatever? And again, the problem is this is a newer art form that was documented, right? Because this essentially started in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. So you've got documentation. You got people that are alive today and active that can tell you, but everybody still has like, actually, this was the first song. Nah, I don't recognize that as the first song. This was. Okay, but he was doing this here. Yeah, I was there. That wasn't really grime. This was more grime. So it's like these different perspectives of people that were all there and functioning still make it so hard to be like, all right, this is the pinpoint of, and this is the thing, culture's so malleable and there's so many different things that play into it and a perspective. Like in the same way, bro, you can take two people and be like, is this hip hop? And you'll get something. I don't recognize that as hip hop.
Right. Well, grime is and it's like, a combination of so many things.
Right.
And so like you can trace grime back to like to jungle. Yeah. But you can also trace it back to dancehall.
Right.
And you can trace it to hip hop.
And you can trace
it to UK garage.
Yeah.
So there is no right or wrong answer. Right. Because it's come from so many places,
this is the thing, and I think this is the thing with hip hop as well, is like, yeah, we know what all of those foundations were, but when was the switch? When it's like, right, this is hip hop or this is grime. We all know what the foundation for those things were, but like, these are always media terms as well. Like, it's always like nobody ever calls what they're doing, right, I'm doing this. It's always a term that's thrown onto something. So like trying to pinpoint this time where it's like, all right, this thing that we're doing now, this is what we call it. Like there's such a gray area in that it's like, it becomes impossible. And I think this whole conversation has got to a point where it's become less about giving people their credit and more about taking the credit away from people, which to me is just a reductive conversation.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I think the real issue is the claiming. I think the real issue is that at this point of time in America, that black people said, yo, we kind of got to set the record straight. Right. And it becomes a problem with people that feel more ownership of the thing than black people do.
Right.
Has the origin of grime, has that always been an argument in the UK?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And look, I'm not a huge grime fan. It's like I don't want to overspeak.
But since like the 2000s, they've been saying like where they come from.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, like, people will always refer to Wiley as the godfather of grime. Right. And then there's other people who dispute that and say, like, yeah. I mean, look, I'm not the most knowledgeable about grime. There's definitely people, anything I say, they're going to fact check and be like, actually, and that's my whole point. Yeah. Is like, everybody's got a perspective, and, it becomes tough,
This is the funny thing. I would have never thought we would have had a conversation about the origins of hip hop.
Right. International podcast. UK in the house. What
with a London man.
What?
I mean, you gotta remember, like, for us, we can pinpoint when hip hop hit London, which was 1982. That was when, Zulu Nation were in London. That was what, like, that was really what. And again, for the Londoners who were really out there at the time, they might be able to dispute that. But from my understanding, 82 was
that
really
was the trek where they took the boat over there.
Yeah, that was when France. It really became.
They took it on shore.
Right.
Yeah,
that was really when You know, and again, maybe more so in London, that hybrid of dancehall culture and hip hop was such a thing.
Yeah.
Because, you know, dancehall culture in 1982 was huge as well, you know. But hip hop definitely, you know, that's when it became like a stronghold in London. And that's when, you know, like the kids, you know, they had the breakdancing at Covent Garden and, yeah, I mean, someone might check me on that. And again, it's hard to say exactly because, you know, Rapper's Delight was a huge record in 79. Right. That was a massive record in London. But right. I feel like 82 is the year that people really see it as like, all right, there's a scene. There's actually like a UK hip hop scene.
Yeah. Snips, where could we catch you? Like, if motherfuckers in Brooklyn, you know, coming to check you.
I do a monthly party at Record Room called The Salon. It's all vinyl, R&B hip hop party. And yeah, man, bunch of residencies.
Did you ever think in 2024, 2025, you'd be doing vinyl parties?
No. That's crazy.
Do you know what it's really proved to me as well? Is that the whole concept of chasing cool and trying to be current and on trend is bullshit because everything comes back around. Because 15 years ago, there was nothing more uncool than buying, than trying to play like 2000s hip hop on vinyl, right. Wearing loose jeans and fitted caps. Like you were seen as like, oh, you're you're stuck in the past, you're done.
Dinosaur.
You know?
Dinosaur.
And now that's exactly what the cool kids are doing. So, you know, it just made me realize, man, just do what the fuck you do. It's going to come back around.
Yeah.
You know?
I also think it's a testament to, you know, streaming and how as accessible and easy it is to find music.
Yeah.
It's not interesting anymore.
It's not interesting and there's no North Star, right? You know, like there's very few records that can be agreed on as like, all right, this is the record right now. Mm-hmm. This is the smash. Because everybody's got their own little bubbles in their own little pockets of what they listen to. That like, you know, with the exception of something that might go huge on TikTok, a Glorilla record or a Cardi record or whatever, or Not Like Us, there's no like I feel like I add maybe 2 or 3 new records to my
it's becoming less and less.
Yeah,
right.
You know.
Yeah.
Whereas before, like every week, I'm trying to add new stuff. Like now,
I think they're going back to vinyl is kind of bringing back the community type of aspect.
Absolutely.
I think that's needed, and I think that you know the young guys kind of. I think they're starting to discover that.
Yeah.
That joy.
Yeah.
I think they're starting to enjoy the process.
Yeah.
Of finding the music
and hanging out with people and being like, and then look, man, I don't mean to get spiritual or whatever, but like there was something about holding a physical thing, you know, like and reading the credits.
Totally.
I mean, because look, you can find Sierra 1-2 Step.
Yeah.
Easily, you could type it in. You could listen to it on YouTube.
Right.
You could check it on Spotify or Apple Music.
Yeah.
But these kids it's not interesting.
No.
But finding like Sierra 1-2 Step in a record store after 45 minutes or an hour and a half of searching or stumbling onto it.
It makes it so much happier when you actually play that song.
The joy, man.
And it makes your decisions when you're playing so much more like
urgent.
Yeah, but like also like, you know, like when you have every record at your fingertips, you walk into a club and you're like, right, I can just fire off everything. Right. When you go in and you got 2 crates of records, it's like
calculated.
Have to be so calculated and be like, right, I'm not going to touch this section of the crate yet. I don't want to go too early and ring these off when, you know.
Making better DJs, man. It's making better DJs.
100%. But I'm so supportive of the kids that want to buy vinyl and want to get into this, but you have to learn how, like there's no shortcuts for this shit. And this is like
You'll find out.
But I get people. But the thing is, you got a lot of these vinyl places that are just letting anyone play. They're not
that's their fault.
That's their fault. I agree.
That's their fault.
And my thing is this: is like,
but it's also like a starting point for anybody, right?
Right. But
it's
for
almost
me,
like,
I had turntables and records for years before I first got in a club. But
it's a different realm. It's almost like an open mic.
Yeah.
You know, it's an open mic to say like, do I want to do comedy? Let me try it out.
And also,
let me play. Get booed a couple of times.
I like.
We'll find out if you stick around.
Yeah. So you
also when somebody that really knows what they're doing comes on after you,
really see the difference.
It's humbling. You know that joke where Cat Williams talks about the Chrysler and the Phantom. He's like,
they pull up.
It does look like it, but then when you pull up,
a real fan of,
you know. And I've had that where I've played with people and I've come on afterwards and I see it in their face. They're like, oh shit, I need to.
That's how it should be.
Yeah. You know, and even like the you know the venue owners or whatever. whatever, they're like, oh, this is what happens when you book someone that really knows what they're doing, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think the one thing I would say to these kids who are like, I get people ask me all the time, I need to learn how to mix on vinyl. No, you don't. You need to learn how to mix. Yeah. Because if you want to learn how to mix on vinyl, set your Serato up, load 2 songs in absolute mode, and turn your computer around and figure it out. Because if you can do that, you can mix on vinyl, you know? And there's this misconception that like mixing on vinyl, no, the problem is you don't know how to mix without a visual cue, you know? Learn to mix by ear and you can mix on vinyl. Like it's that simple, you know? And for me, I'm like, if you don't know how to mix by ear, you may not have any business being a DJ.
Tell him, Snips. Tell him. Wagwan.
Big man thing, bro.
Big man thing.
Voice man. No vinyl.
Snips, I'm going to come check you one of these days. Yeah, I'll come check you at Record Room. All right, Snips. Thank you, sir.
Been a pleasure,
Great
man.
Convo,
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much.
You both. Honestly,
and then whenever we have you come back, come through.
I would love to, man. This has been a genuine honor. I'm a fan. Like, I stay plugged into what you guys are doing.
Yes.
Wagwan.
Yes.
If you want to watch more episodes from R.O.A.D Podcast, click either links on the left or the right. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page and get updated on new uploads throughout the week. Peace.